about the game.
World premiere.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Console Crusade podcast. Here we talk retro games, video game news, and as always, we are brought to you by LaCroix, aloe vera, and hydrogenated soybean oil. I'm EJ Olson. This is Nick Durheim. Let's go, E3!
Yeah, I did start with a LaCroix today. Also, we don't have any aloe, so my sunburn is just going to be completely untreated.
That's fucking terrible, dude. You looked crispy when you were up and walking around earlier.
It's funny, too, because my bangs hang kind of to the side, so only half of my forehead is burned.
Oh, no.
And then I have a nice glasses tan line on the bridge of my nose. And I have blisters on my nose that I've never had before.
Really? I've never gotten the blisters from a sunburn before. Not like that anyway, so that's brutal.
It's probably because my pores are so giant.
Giant pores. You are the poreman. Anyway, we're a little bit late on this. It is...
yeah, just a little bit.
Well, I mean, E3, the event's only wrapped up like Friday, right? They were still showing shit till the end of the week? Or am I crazy?
No, yeah, E3 didn't start until Tuesday.
Right.
It's just the conferences. That's what people think of when they think of E3. It's all the big announcements that the main three console manufacturers actually talk about. And then the other conferences. It's all about the conferences. That's where the announcements are. E3 show floor itself is just everybody.
I guess that's technically true, but I feel like all the cool stuff we got post-conference. Like Nintendo dropped their coolest shit, like the Treehouse. Anyway, we'll get to that point. So we are a little bit late, a couple days late, but that's okay. I doubt anyone's out there waiting for our hot takes. But we wanted to make sure we get this in. This is Sunday the 18th. We wanted to get this in before the beginning of the week so we can look on to bigger and better things. Do you just want to go through like conference by conference, or you want to just jump around and talk about whatever the fuck we feel like?
I say conference by conference just to stay organized.
Okay. Well, kick us off then with, on Saturday, we had EA, which in the last pod I was very down on. I was like, who fucking cares? And you had to remind me that, well, hey, they have Star Wars, you idiot. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, that thing I care a lot about. Yeah, kick us off. Where are we at on that?
Well, they started off with that drum line, showing off Madden.
What was that? The drum line. It was so weird.
It's a leftover pomp and circumstance kind of thing of E3's prior. Because I don't know if you've ever really tuned in with E3, but I've been like watching on and off since I had G4 back in middle school, so like 2004.
Oh, God.
But yeah, E3 conferences used to be really, really, really bad. But they've gotten better, and they're moving more towards the Nintendo Direct kind of style, which kind of begs the question, like, why do they even need to have a live event? They can just put out a video and make it nice and short, like Bethesda's conference, which we'll get to. But yeah, they had the drum line show up, and they're talking about Madden, and I don't know if you don't really play football games, do you?
So I don't play football games. I haven't played a football game since NFL Street Volume 2, which was a great game.
There was an NFL Street?
Yeah, NFL Street. It was fucking awesome, man.
Oh, dang. I did not know about that.
I think I put more time into NFL Street than I did NBA Street. And I put a lot of time into NBA Street, man.
Those are good games.
Yeah. I'm not a football guy at all. I haven't fucking watched one Super Bowl like in my life. So that's blasphemy to some people, but whatever.
Well, yeah, I kind of lumped all the sports together because I pay attention to them in the periphery. And I know like my brother plays Madden. He's still playing NCAA football 2013.
Oh, God.
To this day. And then we were actually talking about that over the weekend, talking about EA's making NBA Live again this year. And he was like, oh, yeah, they did that 2 years ago. And that was weird. Didn't really register. Everyone was still playing 2K. It's like, what else do they have to offer? What do you think about NBA Live 2018?
So NBA Live, honestly, the graphics look they would look worse than 2K. The physics are weird. The animations are weird. I was watching it. I was like, this doesn't move the needle for me. There's no way they're going to come out of the gates with a game that is more polished, more pristine, controls any tighter. Like 2K has it nailed to like an exact formula. After 10 years of having, or close to a decade of having the strongest basketball simulator ever, I don't know what NBA Live is doing. And they kind of, they came out and said, we're giving you a whole new way to play. And they showed some crappy little highlight reel of some character models that looked like just like shit to me anyway. And then they teased a new game mode. I can't remember what it is now. Like it went in one ear and out the other. I didn't care.
Same here. I didn't like take any notes on it, but they're showing like doing a my career, my player mode, whatever you want to call that, where you have to like RPG style. You have to build your stats, and that's kind of a staple for the simulator basketball games.
Cutting edge.
They're showing like getting respect on the streets, and then taking that to the court, and like the typical tone deaf kind of, you're a basketball player and we know about basketball, right, guys? At the same time, it was interesting to me because what if they do inject the NBA Street kind of formula into that half of the game? I wonder if they're trying to like entice people with that, because NBA Street probably isn't strong enough of an IP for them to make that as a standalone franchise.
Oh man, I wish they could bring it back.
Where they want to get those big numbers to, you know, necessitate having the NBA license.
If they made a modern NBA Street, like a true NBA Street sequel, I think it would do gangbusters. But the thing about that is, like, 2K's had their NBA, it's not Playgrounds, that's the new game that just came out. Like NBA Blacktop, I want to say, where it's not like this stylized, goofy thing, but it's much more sort of rugged, like playground basketball. It's 3-on-3. You know, I have buddies who've been bugging me to get online and play with them forever, and that's all they do is play the 3-on-3 Blacktop. I think that's what it's called. It might be called something different, but so it's not even like that's not new. It's just, well, I would even say it's iterative. They're trying to iterate. Like if it's a step backwards, is that an iteration? I guess technically, like, yeah,
it's not the same thing.
But
I just wonder if that's gonna sell, what numbers that's gonna pull up. FIFA will do great. Madden will do great. Yeah, that was really it they showed for sports. But then they also showed Need for Speed, which they had like announced. They showed the name and like a tiny little teaser trailer for the new one, Need for Speed Payback, and a release date. But they showed some gameplay. They showed a little bit of that little mission where you're chasing down a truck, and it seemed like there was a lot of interstitial playback, cutting into a cutscene, and then jumping back into playing the game. It's sort of like a quick time event, but without having to do random button presses.
Right.
Did that really move the needle at all for you? I haven't played Need for Speed since Hot Pursuit, so I have no idea what's going on with that franchise.
Dude, honestly, okay. First, let me say, really quick, back to the Madden thing. I thought the story mode actually looked really awesome in the Madden. I know they haven't done the story mode before. It looked really cool. Madden graphics look terrible. This looks like a PS2 game, dude. I don't know what they're doing as far as that goes, but I just want to get that 2 cents in. Like this, like that story mode almost makes me want to play that game, which is really weird to have come away from that trailer thinking that. So anyway, as far as Need for Speed goes, that game is gorgeous.
No, yeah, I mean, car games show really well, and that like looked really tight.
It's like you said, super cinematic, and that's actually what I put in my notes. Cinematic as fuck. I like that they cut this sort of weaving in between, like you said, the cutscenes without having to jerk you out of the moment or throwing in QuickTime events is very seamless. And I imagine when you cut into those cutscenes, you still have some sort of control, whether it's camera or something. Otherwise, I don't think that'll work as well as it showed.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends, because that was like a pretty cutscene ridden kind of vertical slice that they showed. But I'm sure the rest of the game is not going to be as cutscene heavy. They just wanted to like show off, this is what we're doing with the game, is that you're going to be driving and then you'll do this cool maneuver and they'll do like the slow motion takedown Burnout style with the cars crashing and like all that. Oh, that looks so tight.
It was very exciting.
Right. So I guess it'll depend on how long the campaign is, because that's a single player game right there.
Yeah.
Apparently I didn't, because I haven't paid attention to Need for Speed in like 15 years. The last one they did was had to be online all the time because people would like drop in and out while you're like racing around. That got a lot of flack. Like people did not want that from Need for Speed. They wanted to be able to play offline. So they're really showing like, yes, there's an offline game to this. And then, yeah, sure, you can also do online races, which of course.
I don't mean to stereotype and or possibly displace, our audience here in any harmful way. But, the kind of guys who are buying Need for Speed are like the 42-year-old potheads who are like playing on their fucking Xbox 360 from 15 years ago. They're just like, they just want to race they want to get in their Stang and they want to go for a race, dude. Like,
you're painting a very specific picture for not wanting to displace an audience.
To be fair, I know that's not true, but
yeah, Need for Speed is probably like the smallest racing franchise that's still like a well-known name at this point.
It seems pretty niche to me, and the only guys I know who play it are like that guy.
Because it's not a sim racer, it's not goofy enough to be like an arcade racer, so it's kind of, where does it fit in? What's it supposed to be?
I don't know enough about car games to know one way or the other.
But I mean, showing off the single player and having it be like a Fast and Furious action movie kind of style, I think that could be its thing. And if it succeeds and it does it well, that'd be a kind of thing that I might want to pick up, and then not like brand new, but like pick it up later down the road on sale.
Sure.
And then pick it up every couple of years to get like a cool new car story game and check out the new places.
I honestly thought the exact same thing. By the end of that cutscene, I thought to myself, this is very GTA, very Fast and Furious. Like, I could be into that. And it makes me almost wish when I was playing GTA 5 that they had more moments like that. Because there's a lot of driving missions. There's even a lot of cutscenes in GTA 5 where you're chasing a boat and your car flies off. And these crazy things. But
for a game that has the word auto in the name, the driving in Grand Theft Auto has never felt very good to me.
That's what's so weird about the GTA games is nothing about them really feels good.
Yeah, it's kind of a jack of all trades.
It just does it all, and it does it all well, and it's got a lot of character. But like the shooting doesn't feel. Oh, to be fair, third-person shooting mechanics like never really feel quite right. Like they don't even feel good enough for what they are, but it's never what you wish they were.
So for Need for Speed, we're both feeling like fairly positive about it. Not like, oh man, I can't wait for that game, but like, oh, I'm kind of interested. Both got our attention.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was going to save this, but we're here. I want to mention it. Looking at what the Xbox One X previewed and looking at Forza, Need for Speed looks way nicer than Forza, dude. I mean, when I saw the trailer for Forza 7, is that what it is? My immediate reaction was like, I don't give a fuck how many pixels are on screen right now. This game looks like shit.
I wouldn't agree with you that far. Like, I think they both look good because car games look good and like you can really check out the environments and everything. But it's just a different style of game. Forza is more sim, and Need for Speed is trying to show off more cinematic moments. I'm not too sure what the gameplay loop is like in Forza either, but if Need for Speed is kind of doing these missions and having like levels as opposed to here's a map, go explore, then I could see why they could show a little bit better in that way.
So here's something I'm sure we're going to disagree on. The next game on our list here is A Way Out.
Right, that's the indie game that's being developed by the dude who worked on Brothers, Tale of Two Brothers, or whatever that game was called. The Xbox Live game that everyone had because it cost $5 on a sale once, and then they never played it.
I certainly never played it. I heard really good things about it, though. It got a physical release on the Xbone.
Yeah, I mean, people gonna love their weird indie titles. It never interested me because I didn't like the core gameplay mechanic of it, controlling two characters, or I guess you could play it co-op, but yeah, A Way Out. EA was talking about like, yeah, we want to have more indie titles because I think they understand we are a big corporation and we have all these huge AAA titles, and we make enough money off Madden every year that we can make 100 games if we wanted to. Right. So they showed A Way Out, which is a cooperative, I don't know, what do you call that, like action adventure game. It's a storyline driven kind of third person over the shoulder gameplay where two players are controlling these two brothers as they're trying to break out of prison and do whatever they're doing. But the main like gimmick of it is that it's only two players. You cannot play the game alone, and it's always split screen. So even if you do play online with somebody else, there's still the line down the center and you see what each person is doing, because there are parts where one person will be in a cutscene, another person can be like walking around doing something else, or the center line will dynamically move. So if one person is doing a more action-oriented thing, it'll give them more screen space so they can see like what they're doing, which I thought that was actually kind of interesting. I would wonder if it's just like, I want to know what the rules of that are, I guess, but what did you think about that game?
I have a lot to say about this. Right off the bat, I was really intrigued by it. It gives me sort of the Until Dawn vibe where it's very story-driven. You're running around. I didn't see any QuickTime events in the trailer. It's a game like that, narrative-driven. It's got a lot of QuickTime events.
Yeah, I didn't see any like flashing X buttons.
Right. So, but I got that vibe. Like, it's going to be very story-driven. Mm-hmm. I imagine it won't be a linear sort of thing. You can kind of pick and choose how you're going to navigate the story to a degree anyway. But I got like Resident Evil vibes, like the newest Resident Evil game I watched a buddy of mine play. I don't know why, but something about the creeping around in the building, trying to escape, this buildup of suspense. You're creeping around, you're trying to figure out how to escape. You're being chased by somebody and just kind of navigating this world, not knowing what the hell you're doing or where you're going. I don't know why, but as soon as I saw this, I was like, this feels like RE7 to me. In a weird way. The co-op only thing is not good. I think, I know they're trying to go for this gimmicky thing, and that's bad. That's really not great. A lot of people like me, I live with one person who doesn't play games, and I don't have any friends down here in the town I'm in that play games. I guess if you can co-op online, that's okay, because I can find someone to play with.
They confirmed that you can do that, so if both you and I had it, we could open up a Skype call and play through, and it'd be like we were gaming on the couch together.
Honestly, like, I really want to pick this game up. The always split screen thing is not good. We've seen, like, how eloquent am I? Not good, that bad. Okay, so the old Lego games, a couple years ago, Lego Jurassic World came out. And I don't know if they'd been doing it for a while, but this was my first experience with it. They got rid of traditional split screen, and they had that dynamic split screen where, yeah, if a character would go off, it would split weird, and depending on who was like you said, if there was more action oriented, it would kind of morph to fit what they were doing. And then you'd come together, and then the split screen would disappear when you were like in the same area, and then it was really disorienting. And I think they brought the classic split screen back in newer games because people didn't like it. So when I see a game like this being developed, I'm like, do you have a point of reference for this? It obviously didn't work. Why?
It sounds like a completely different experience, and I don't think you can actually compare the two, because that sounds like it's morphing back into a one frame and like merging two cameras, and I could see how that could be disorienting. But if it's each player is controlling their own camera always, then I don't see how that could be a problem. Also, the game's designed specifically around it being split screen all the time. So I'm sure they play with that in a more like case by case manner than you would where it's sort of like a weird fix to a problem where you have two players on screen at one time and then they wander away from each other.
Well, either way, I guess we'll kind of see what the dev cycle has for this, kind of what they start leaking when it gets closer. I mean, it says early 2018, but who knows when the fuck that actually means.
No, yeah, I would imagine that's more like a summer release. That'll probably get delayed and then pushed to summer.
I'll definitely pick it up if it's reasonably priced. I want to check it out. The concept was really intriguing to me. This sort of game without, like, for some reason, I feel like there aren't a lot of games like this that aren't like horror driven, or even something like God.
I thought it seemed more like an Uncharted than it did a Resident Evil.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they weren't doing anything creepy.
Well, I mean, Resident Evil is more built around the survival mechanics than it is around like, hey, cover yourself and just shoot everything. Uncharted is just kill everything and then jump occasionally. This seemed more, it was more about the survival, the exploration, the like figuring what the fuck is going on. And that's why I got more RE, more Until Dawn sort of vibes. But I don't know, they didn't show enough to kind of know if that's going to be the case or not. But I see the Uncharted comparison as far as like the camera and kind of how you're navigating the world. Like I see that.
Yeah, and there was that, they showed that bit where one person is driving and the other person sitting in the back of the truck and then like shooting cars that are pursuing them. So those big action set pieces that you would see in a Naughty Dog game, that's where I'm kind of getting that comparison.
I would be happy if there was more, if there are going to be more action oriented sections of the game, and especially if they can get the gunplay right. Because a lot of times you see this, they'll just throw the gunplay in because they feel like they need to appease a wider audience. Like, oh, they want bullets, let's give them bullets, and it just doesn't work. It feels tacked on. So I hope that they do it right if they're going to do that kind of thing. Speaking
of action and bullets,
here we fucking go, dude.
I was not expecting something this big from EA. Like, like we talked about, we got sports, we got Need for Speed, we got like maybe an indie title, and then Star Wars. But then when they came out and they showed that little teaser for Anthem, and then said, okay, yeah, we'll see more at the Xbox conference tomorrow. And then I'm going to go ahead and just lump this all in.
Totally, do it.
For like the gameplay, and they just saved it for literally the very end of the Microsoft conference, and they showed like quite a long, like 6 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah,
from that. And we're talking about Anthem, which has a tentative release window of fall 2018. We'll see if that happens, but this game caught my eye. This game looks very, very interesting.
Hell yeah!
It's giving me very strong Destiny co-op vibes, but also with a more interesting kind of setting. Like I haven't seen much of Destiny, but just having that city initial area where you're wandering through a very Mediterranean kind of like cyberpunk kind of setting is always based on the Middle East for some reason. Just the shops and stuff. But
right.
I digress. But you get a mission, and then you go and you jump in your Iron Man suit, kind of Titanfall-esque.
Totally.
And then you just flying through that tunnel. I was like, that was really cool. That was a really cool moment. And then as soon as they're like, all right, let's split up. I'll go down. You go hit the side. And she dives underwater.
You fucking geek, dude.
My mind exploded. That was so tight. I've never seen underwater look that cool in a video game before. Tell me what you think about Anthem.
Okay, the only notes I wrote down for this was Destiny meets Titanfall ? because I watched when I made the notes. I had yet to see the gameplay from the Xbox conference. I'd only seen the trailer.
Oh man, yeah, the trailer is like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it does not show literally anything about the game.
So then I watched the gameplay demo, and yeah, when he's flying through, like that was exhilarating just watching. I'm like, I can't wait to just fly around in my jetpack. That looks awesome. The thing about it is, yeah, it obviously looks like
smack your mic stand around.
Yeah, I'm just beating the thing. Don't mind me. The thing about this that interests me, I played a lot of Destiny, as I've said before, but what I never played that game for the world, for the story, for the lore, which there is a lot of. It's just not very accessible.
You just have to go onto a website and read it.
It's fucking what garbage. Yeah, so that's not why I got into that game. I mean, I enjoy the world that they crafted, like as far as just like what you're experiencing while you're running around and shooting things. But the mechanics were tight in that game. The gunplay was top notch. But what looks so great about Anthem is that it's going to take that formula and it's putting you into an actual open world that you can explore. So it feels a lot more like Mass Effect in a way, where you're able to explore these big open environments. I know the original Mass Effect games weren't traditionally like open world games, but just when you got dropped into that world, it was like, because Destiny, you're at a hub world, you teleport to where you want to go, and you have a fixed area you can control or you can patrol. But if you're doing any story stuff, it's very linear. It takes you on a very clear path, and it never felt, they didn't deliver on the promise of this open universe experience.
Destiny is it primarily first person also, right?
It's all first person, yeah.
Except when you're dancing, it goes to the third person.
Right. Well, yeah, when you're in the hub world, it's third person, but you don't do anything there except walk.
So, like, side note, like with what you're saying, I feel like being able to see your character on screen is a huge plus for an exploration game. Gives you a better, view of like angle of view, and being able to like know where you are and
in relation to
your surroundings is like huge for that kind of gameplay. And then it looked like it went when she was shooting, it was in a Ironsides like kind of zoom in kind of view. So I would imagine there's going to be some weapons that you're using that will be first person, but then when you switch out, then it's going to go back to third person, because that guy did that cool area of effect kind of ground pound, killed a bunch of little shit mobs.
Right.
That was tight.
I really hope that there's a first person option. I know like Battlefront did that with their last release, and it divided some people because, there were advantages to going third person that you couldn't get it going first person. And so a lot of people, especially competitive players, would play third person, but it just doesn't feel nearly as good. It doesn't feel the way it should in third person. So I hope there's at least the option, even though that's kind of, I think, a little more difficult to develop for. But I still don't know. Is this going to be more multiplayer driven, PvP, PvE, or is this going to be more story narrative driven and going through and actually experiencing a concise game?
I wonder that too. From just what they showed, it seems like they wanted to highlight that you're receiving a mission. They wanted to highlight that they had facial animation that was working.
Mm-hmm. Zing.
Yeah, you receive a quest, and then immediately you buddy up, and then they discover an area, and like, oh, we'll go back to that with someone else because they haven't gone through there either. So it was giving me like MMO kind of receiving a quest and then going do missions. You saw a little thing pop up, said new discovery when she went underwater. And then they had that storm at the end, which they spoke of more in depth with the developer as he was like narrating, is saying, like these are like pseudo random kind of procedurally generated events that you'll stumble across. And then they're kind of like special raids. I would guess would be the kind of comparison with Destiny.
Sure.
But it seemed like they leaned like that there is going to be story stuff, that it won't be like super in depth, and that they're showing off exploration. They showed off loot drops, which is a huge like gameplay loop for Destiny a la Borderlands. And I don't know, it just seemed like it had like a lot of cool gameplay elements that I'd be very interested in.
I had a buddy text me and he says, What's the deal with Anthem, man? Why is everyone talking about this? It looked pretty, but the gameplay looks like shit. And I think he just meant the third person. I don't think he was much more analytical than that. He saw that it was a over the shoulder thing and it kind of turned him off. And so that really is my only concern. I think the formula there for creating a solid shooter, a solid MMO, a solid PvE experience, it's all there. Like there's no reason that the good BioWare team, the Mass Effect team, can't nail this. And bonus, they tapped Drew Karpyshyn to write the story. I don't know if it's campaign mode. They were vague.
Right, and this game's still a year and a half away, so
right.
They can afford to be a little bit vague with that.
Right. But he's best known for, he did like the Darth Bane trilogy and this old Star Wars canon. He wrote all of the old Mass Effect books, which I don't know if those were original stories or if they're adaptations. He wrote some of the Darth Revan books, if I recall correctly. So he's got quite the pedigree when it comes to sci-fi fantasy. So I think that's really awesome. When I heard that, I was like, okay, like instantly already I'm sold on this being a better narrative than anything Destiny ever hoped it would be.
Right. Yeah. I just want to see more, and that's a good sign.
Yeah. But it's a ways out. Like this is over a year out, and well, I don't know. I could see this being delayed, but I have a feeling it probably will come out next fall, because if it doesn't come out in the fall, they can't release this in the summer. They can't, like, it would have to wait till the following fall.
Yeah, and like the code name for it, the development name has like it leaked like a while ago, so this has been in development for 4 years or so, I think.
Yeah. So I have a feeling we'll get that on time. I'm excited for it. It looks cool. I want to hear more about it.
All right, you're the Battlefront nerd. Tell me what caught your eye with Battlefront 2.
Okay, a couple things here. Battlefront 2 looks cool. The graphics look even sexier. It looks slick. It looks sleek. Obviously, a lot of reused assets, though. It still looks like the first Battlefront game, which is no surprise. Some things I'm excited about. First off, this beautiful woman walked out on stage, all right? And I realize, I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize her. I realize it's Shiva Kamini Soma Kanda Kram from one of my favorite sitcoms. I guess it's not a sitcom. What is The League? What is The League? It's not a sitcom.
Yeah, it's kind of a sitcom.
Is that what you call a sitcom nowadays? I don't know. The genres, they've morphed.
But yeah, it's a comedy sitcom. I mean, it's situational. It's comedy. It's sitcom.
Sitcom, you think of like live audience and haha, look at me looking at the camera, and I don't know. Anyway, so that was cool because I love that show and I think she's wonderful. And so it was kind of weird to see her come out and like spend the entire time, like her sitting up there talking about like, you know, mentioning Star Wars characters and locations and like sort of like some deep nerd knowledge. And I'm like, this is weird, but I like it. But dude, okay, single player, that looks cool. Let's hope it's a nice long campaign and the story weaves in with the canon in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to completely cover the gap between episodes 3 and 4, or 6 and 7, my bad. Yeah, it's the 40 years gap there, 30 years gap.
There's quite a gap.
So yeah, it's supposed to take place over that entire thing. Like you start with the Death Star getting blown up, and then everyone like, the Emperor's dead. What do we do? Like, oh, well, we're the baddies, so we got to do this weird turn to being good, maybe, or sometimes bad. And there's a lot of story stuff they can play with there.
So what's so great about the new Star Wars canon is that they've really, for the first time, in a meaningful way, managed to make me empathize with like this fictional empire and the people who work for the empire, which is billions large, like literally billions of people under employ of the empire. And you really realize that when you're reading some of these books, there's some great books like Lost Stars and Battlefront, Twilight Company, and even watching like Rogue One, we're seeing, we have this window into this world now, which is really great, and kind of see how a lot of these people, like, they don't realize the empire is evil. It's just people doing their job, working for the government, essentially. So I'm really interested to see how they handle that, and if they are as nuanced as some of the other newer canonical, you know, comic books, even some of the TV show stuff. So far, I don't know. They haven't shown enough. But just the fact that I can have a 10, 12, 14-hour experience by myself playing Battlefront, that's all I wanted in the first one. I don't want to just play this slow, you know, like that's the thing, is the first Battlefront game was really slow, especially coming off of Destiny, where it's fast-paced, it's tight, you're bouncing around, jumping around, blowing things up. Getting to Battlefront, it was clunky. It felt like you were running through mud the whole time. It just didn't feel very good. Like, it was cool because it was Star Wars, but if it were any other shooter, I think it would have been even more panned than it was, because it didn't. I think it was met to very mediocre sort of reviews and praise, right? People were lukewarm on it, which is not what you want from a Star Wars game.
I think most of the lukewarmness was more from the fact there wasn't a lot of content at launch, as opposed to the quality of that content. I totally believe that's a fair assessment. And then there was more added. Having that trickle out definitely lowers initial reviews, which that's a bummer, but that's what they chose to do.
Yeah, and having $150 season pass or whatever the fuck it was, pretty heinous. They're going free DLC now. Yeah,
I mean, that was the big thing that stuck out for me. It seemed like they understood exactly what people didn't like about the first Battlefront. I say first, but it wasn't the first, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they met it with, okay, you guys wanted a single player, where we're going, this one has a single player. You guys don't like having to pay for a shit ton of DLC. This has completely free DLC, which will be added. Like when The Last Jedi comes out, there's going to be additions from that in the game. They'll just download.
Yeah, perfect.
So it was nice to see that EA being responsive and listening to the fan base and saying, okay, yeah, well, we hear you and we're going to make it better.
I hope that there are more game modes. Like, so far we haven't heard anything about Galactic Conquest, which was like this. There was like a game board where you were engaging in these skirmishes to take control of different territories, kind of like this Galactic Monopoly. I mean, nothing like Monopoly, but you know what I'm saying. I want that game mode and have it, be single player, ideally. Couch co-op is back, but wasn't very good in the first one. Like, only a few modes, including like one of the bigger modes you could play was like the practice or the tutorial modes you could co-op, which is like so stupid. I want classic couch co-op, joining these huge battles. I can set bots and do whether it's like team deathmatch or whatever the equivalent is. I can't remember. Or just give me all of it, but single player mode or couch co-op optional. I love that we were going back to the prequels. We're getting, oh God, I don't know what you call it anymore. Do we have prequel trilogy, original trilogy, and now sequel trilogy? Is that what we're gonna? This hasn't been established yet. I don't know. The sequel trilogy, Force Awakens era, I guess.
You can't say first because. Do you mean the 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 4, 5, and 6?
It's all fucked up. Yeah.
Damn it, George.
Damn it, Georgie. So it all looks good. It looks good. It looks exactly like what we would expect. I am afraid that it's still going to be the slow, clunky shooter. I doubt they went back to the drawing board in the last 18 months or whatever. And
something they were talking about as far as like actual PvP gameplay is that it's going to be class-based.
Okay.
Which I guess they went with Battlefield, which you played Battlefield 1, right?
I did. I did not play anything online.
I don't know what that really does to impact the gameplay with the online stuff, but maybe there's going to be certain classes that are quicker than others, certain classes that are slower than others, and we need a healer, I'll play a healer. We need a tank, I'll play a tank, that kind of thing.
I mean, are they taking some cues from Overwatch?
No, I mean, it's not like Overwatch invented classes in a shooter. Like every major shooter has a class system. Well,
in Battlefront, it was a weird upgrade system, and then you had like these special abilities you could equip. And you didn't have loadouts, and like they did not sort of implement any of the traditional shooter mechanics or the trappings,
So did you watch the? I guess that was a log part of the EA conference. There's like a half hour where they're doing like a PvP match, and they're kind of showing some of the interstitially. They're showing the class systems while also badly narrating the gameplay.
Yeah, no, I think it all looked really good. It was kind of cool to see the clone troopers. I think that was in Theed, the battle in Naboo there.
Yeah, dude, that stage looks awesome. Say what you want about the prequels, but they had really, really interestingly designed like cities and settings.
Totally. I think that's the best part about the prequels was the world building was there, and it was visually striking. That's one thing George Lucas did so well. It was very visually compelling.
Right. And that translates so beautifully into a multiplayer map.
Right.
And I really hope that we see some really greatly designed locations with the single player campaign as well.
I'm bummed that the single player campaign isn't going to reach across all.
That's way too ambitious.
I mean, is it?
They want to have like just a story. They don't want to have, let's play the movies. This is like a new thing.
Well, okay, I do appreciate that. What the original Battlefront 2 did was you were following like a battalion, like a troop of clone troopers.
I mean, that was also when episodes 1, 2, and 3 were coming out, so it was relevant, but this is like 20 years later.
But then, like, even in the OG one, I don't know what you're doing over here on camera.
I'm serving you.
You're serving me, damn, dude. Well, they had a original trilogy story. I think it bled over. Like, after the Republic fell, the clone troopers transitioned into stormtroopers, and they carried the narrative across all the movies at the time. I like this. I think it'll be cool. There's a book coming out.
Right, yeah. And they talked about I say they, but it was the one actress for the single player campaign. She was kind of heading the event and like talking about it. She seemed really excited about it, like totally nerding out, which is cool.
Shiva Kamini Somakanda Kram.
Like she was like, yeah, you should read the book. The book's really cool.
Well, of course she said that.
Because I watched an interview with her on the Giant Bombcast afterwards, and she was like talking about how when she heard that there was going to be a single player storyline, and when she got the role, she's like, okay, she like DM'd the writer and was like, okay, what do I need to like read to like get myself into this role? I want to like absorb as much Star Wars stuff as I can. And they're like, okay, yeah, here's like some of the book. And she's like, yeah, the book's helped me get into character for the storyline. So it ties in for her personally also.
Right. That's really cool to hear about. The new book's going to be called Inferno Squad. That's cool. At Twilight Company, I've got Inferno Squad. I love that. That's just so, that makes me geek out, dude.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that's the name of the squad that you're a part of in the storyline.
Right. What's her name? Janina Gavankar?
Yeah. I was thinking like it was like Janine or Jolene or something like that, but yeah, Janina.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be cool. I'm going to pick it up day one. Of course I am. Let's move on, though. That was a lot of time spent on EA. I think we're going to spend a lot less time on Xbox here if we don't go down the 4K rabbit hole. I'll try to be brief with my ramblings and my rage.
I don't think anybody really cares about what you think is going on with like this actually meeting technical specifications or whatever. Is it more powerful than the PS4 Pro?
I mean, this is a beast of a console.
It's got vapor chambers.
Dude!
It's got...
Vape life!
It's smaller than an Xbox One S. When they showed this side by side,
It's
I was
amazing.
Like, they made it smaller.
That's amazing, dude.
It's wild, but they announced the name Xbox One X, which is
so
gross.
bad.
But if you look at it as far as but not an anagram, but a anagram, XBOX, it's an Xbox. I don't know. But then they've got a release date. They've had the specs out for a long time, and they did a really smart thing by giving it to Digital Foundry, which they're like the spec nerds. They count the frames,
right?
Like they're your go-to place for, is it running better,
right?
But yeah, so they've had that. They've had their specs out for a while. They recently said, oh yeah, our devs wanted a little bit more RAM, so we put more RAM in it. Okay, you happy now? It's coming out November 7th. It's $499, which is not ideal, but I think for everything they put into that thing, that's a fair price.
It's a very nice price. I imagine they're taking a loss on hardware, which traditionally is fine. It's a fucking beast of a console. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Here are the few problems with it. And I think pretty much everything about the console is a problem. They did everything wrong. When we talked about this several pods ago about like how they're going to market this, I said they need to get away from the 4K thing. They need to market this as the next generation of games, and they need to bring in exclusives. They did none of that. I mean, they showed some Xbox and Windows 10 exclusives, and we'll get to those. Everything about that initial bit of the conference, thankfully, it was mercifully very short. Very short section of the conference was dedicated to the Xbox One X. XXX. Terrible fucking name, dude. It's so bad.
Having it sound exactly like S is not very great for people who say the word out loud.
Like Xbox One was a bad name. Then Xbox One S was just a logical progression of an already terrible name. Xbox One X is such an abortion.
Apple's done both of those things. They've done the X and they've done the S.
I think that's different because no one is going and saying, hey, hey, mom, dad, I want the iPhone 7S for Christmas. Like, there is no iPhone 7X to get confused with. Like, that's the thing is...
Not yet. What if that's the next iPhone? You don't even know yet.
Well, I guess that's really valid. We could get the fucking iPhone 7X supercharged turbo deluxe.
But yeah, it's not great. It's the same problem that the Wii U. Not even the same problem, but it's a similar problem.
Very similar.
You see this thing, you're like, oh, the Xbox. At least Xbox One, and having it spelled out One is a little bit better because you're like, oh, it's not the 360 anymore. And then One S, you just say, oh, it's the Xbox One, but it's got a smaller price tag. I mean, I think it works fine. This is a boutique item for power users in the Xbox camp, which I don't know if there even really are that many on that side anymore. But
power users in the Xbox camp are called PC gamers, Nick.
I mean, you could make that same conversation with the PlayStation 4, but I think I don't think they have the expectations that this is going to sell. This is going to be their new Xbox. This is just their higher tier Xbox. And we've seen that with the PS4 Pro, and they've said how many they've sold with that since they launched it. It was just like 1 in 5, so 20% of their PS4s sold over the holiday were PS4 Pros, and I'm sure they reap the benefits of selling that hardware for that price point. So I don't think they're selling the Xbox One X at a loss, because they have to make as much money off of it as they can, because they're not benefiting themselves by having a higher price SKU otherwise, right?
I've got a feeling that Microsoft has shown they're kind of hitting like the Nintendo stride, where they're just out of touch. They think their shit don't stink. Even after the utter failure of I don't want to say utter failure of the Xbox One, because by any other metric, it's done really well. It's just that PlayStation has done historical numbers. But I just don't get what they're doing. As much technology is in the Xbox One X, this would be a bigger leap between this current gen and a potential next gen than we got between like PS3 and PS4 and that generation. This would have been a bigger leap had they not focused on cramming more pixels in, but focused on just boosting the fidelity of their current games and focusing solely on developing for a new box, maximizing the graphics capabilities. We would have had a meaningful leap in visual fidelity had that been the direction they wanted to go.
They literally can't do that, though, because there aren't enough people that have 4K TVs. They say 4K, but it's basically just like a minor future-proof to be like holiday season comes up and somebody gets a 4K TV. They look at what that does 4K stuff. And I think they nailed it by having a 4K Blu-ray player where Sony doesn't have that for some bizarre reason. Like they own the rights for Blu-ray. Why don't they have a...
It's bad.
It's really dumb. But developers aren't going to make games that utilize the full capabilities of the strongest PC right now. So why would they do that for a console that's like doing that for $600 or some astronomical amount? Like they had to hit this price point and they had to make it a meaningful upgrade. It's trying to fit so many circles that I think they did their best, and I think they did better than what PlayStation did with the PS4 Pro.
I agreed.
And then as far as sales and making this like push sales, I think this sitting right next to the One S at $250 optically makes the One S seem cheaper than a $50 price drop actually does.
Yeah.
So if you see those two Xboxes, I mean they've come out and said like, yeah, we're not expecting this to outsell the Xbox One S. I think they're going to have a really good year this year with the Xbox One S at the lower price, especially with like the games they've shown, which they're pretty minor, but I mean, it's more, right?
Just to wrap up the hardware shit, I think it's totally tone deaf. If they had waited a year, Sony, like the PS4 is already showing its age. You know, it wasn't cutting edge when it came out in 13. That was only 4 years ago. Traditionally, console life cycles are only 5 years. We only had one console generation that lasted more than that, and that was because of the crash in 08 and the economy falling apart. 5 years is long enough.
I would argue that it was also AMD stagnating and Intel getting complacent, and that just CPU and GPU manufacturers have kind of they haven't hit the ceiling, obviously,
but they plateaued.
There's leaps and bounds, but they've plateaued quite a bit. So you're not going to see huge leaps anymore until something happens.
That's true. And to your point about, you know, developers aren't going to, our games could look, I mean, better than they do now for sure, but a tangible upgrade in visual fidelity if developers would develop for the most powerful PC. But they can't do that because they need to kind of hit the lowest common denominator in a lot of ways.
Right. People have to have the hardware capable of playing those things.
But now the Xbox One X is strong enough, like I said, that we could have had, if they would have just tried to usher in a new generation. I understand the problem. There aren't enough developers. Because Sony is killing the console game right now, there are all those developers who would say, we'd rather get these games into the hands of 50 million people than to push your new generation with this powerful hardware. Like, we don't need to do that. So I get that, which means that you either should have waited or they should have tried to force Sony's hand. Like, come out and just bluff. Like, this is the next generation. None of this backwards compatible with the Xbox One. Like, this is a new generation. Sell it for $499. It's this beast of a console. Drop some, like, really awesome AAA exclusives and just like try to force Sony's hand into dropping the PS5 next year, and then boom, new console generation, and we can move forward at the rate we've been moving.
I don't see graphics being enough to push Sony's hand. Like, the only reason 360 succeeded to push Sony's hand with the PS3 is because 360 had so much going for it as far as online, and we don't have that problem anymore. There's no disparate elements with Xbox's online versus PlayStation's online, really.
Right.
Sony's kind of caught up. So graphically, they're not going to be able to push that because there wasn't even that big of a difference between PS3 and PS4 graphics, like you were saying.
Yeah.
There's not going to be that much of a difference between Xbox One and Xbox 2 graphics. So they basically just had to copy paste what Sony did last year, but do it with a little bit more grace and understanding.
Yeah. Like I said, I understand that, but there could have been that leap. And I think that's what consumers care about. They want the best version of their games within budget. That's why not everyone's jumping on the PC gaming bandwagon. But this is what the Xbox One was originally selling for. It's $100 more than what the PS4 Pro is selling now. And it is 2+ times more powerful than that. So I feel like if they would have come out and like really wowed, because like I said, when we get into the games here, they showed like Forza. I was not impressed with that. My first reaction was like, why does this look so bad? I don't care that it's presented in 4K. It means nothing to me on my phone. I don't care about the number of pixels on screen, especially at an 8 to 10 foot viewing distance. That doesn't matter. 4K versus 1080 at that distance, you were not getting an improved image. You're just not. Your eye can't see that. It doesn't matter. So I guess for the few people who care about 4K, this will be the box for them. I think it's going to cause all sorts of issues like the PS4 Pro has with developers who have to develop multiple versions of the game across different systems.
They're going to have to make at least 4 different versions now.
Yeah, that's insane.
Of all their cross-platform games.
That's crazy. And this is so much more powerful that it's like the PS4 Pro was more powerful enough that it's like, okay, we can tweak some things and we can boost your frame rate, right? Or we update anti-aliasing, something that it's literally a flick of a button for them. It isn't re-optimizing and rebuilding this or that, right? Like it would be for like porting to a Nintendo console versus a PS4 or something. Like it's not that much work. But the Xbox One X is so much more powerful. It is a whole new console generation as far as hardware goes. So either it'll be vastly underutilized, which is what's going to happen, or the Xbox One versions are going to run like such shit they're unplayable. There's going to be a middle ground where one or the other suffers. And it's probably going to be the $500 machine, not the $250 machine.
Phil Spencer was also on the Giant Bomb kind of late night after E3 show, and they're talking about the new hardware and all that kind of stuff. And something that he was stressing in that show that impressed me a lot more than really anything they talked about with the One X during the E3 press conference itself was he was talking about dev kits. They wanted to have the very best developer kit.
Right.
And so just showing that they had that foresight and that knowledge that they need to make developers feel happy with like porting their games. He was talking about a game that someone was playing with and getting it to run on the Xbox One X, and it said it took them like a day to get it to run, and then from there they were just like optimizing it to make it. They had to like turn stuff up from like their highest rated PC setting or whatever.
Ooh.
To like try and like max it out.
Yeah.
To like, oh, we're still hitting 120 frames. Let's try and dial that back because nobody has 120 hertz TVs. So that kind of stuff, like that makes me more bullish about the One X than the PS4 Pro, because it seems like Sony has not been developer friendly with that, because how many games can you think of that actually have Pro compatibility?
Yeah.
Sure, they added that new thing in the settings where you can say, oh yeah, try and make it run better if you can, and if it crashes it, then turn it back off. But like that's so like janky sounding. It's not even by game basis.
The thing about the One X that's cool is that they're offering super sampling for if you are running at 1080p. But the thing is super sampling is you're rendering at a 4K and downsampling that to 1080. So like you are getting a crisper image even at 1080p, but like I don't necessarily care about that. I want, like I said, I want to boost my fucking anti-aliasing. I want more blades of grass, and I want a smoother frame rate. If you look at something like Destiny, they're saying, oh, it's not going to run at 60 frames on the... That's not
Xbox's problem. That's the developer's fault for not utilizing it.
Absolutely, obviously.
And they can't do, for Destiny, because they have to make the game for the One S also.
I know.
They can't have double the frame rate because that gives people a literal advantage in gameplay.
That is the problem with iterative consoles, and why everyone said that console generations are over. And I have staunchly said that is not going to be good for the video game industry, because we have this problem now where we are plateauing visually when we don't have to. We can keep making these incremental upgrades, but right now we're looking at another 5 years now of this. And it's like the last gen, was it 7th gen? Are we in the 8th gen? 9th? Oh my God, where are we?
Who cares?
Where are we?
There's no such thing as generations anymore. Nintendo abolished that with the Wii U.
Oh, those motherfuckers. So anyway, yeah, it's like, honestly, the games now aren't looking much better than games we had in 2007. We're gonna be looking at almost a decade and a half of just kind of stagnation. Like, I mean, I'm being hyperbolic. They definitely look better, but it's just like either try to push it forward or I don't know. I feel like the games are going to look the same. They're going to play the same, but it's going to cost you more money and it's going to piss developers off, even though they're trying to be developer friendly. It's just, I just don't see what the point of this is. What's the point of this machine if they're not ushering in a new generation, if their games aren't going to look any better, and they have to develop for a console that's got a quarter of the power?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment, but I don't know what the tangible differences would be if they made the Xbox One X an actual new generation. Like, what would that look like? That's a little bit too heady and above my pay grade. Like, I'm sure they've got engineers and like marketing people and like businessmen who've looked into that and like, I don't think people will buy this more if it's a different generation and developers have had their own input for that kind of stuff too. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Well, hey, let's get into the games here. I want to talk about the big games, and then I'm going to shit on some of the smaller games here. Okay. The big games.
So I've got these. I separated them out. I went through the entire showcase, and I picked each one that they showed.
Right.
And I put them in 3 different categories where it was either exclusive. I showed world premiere. And then some of their other games that they showed that didn't have it wasn't a world premiere, one was exclusive, but they said, hey, this is going to be on the console.
Right. So we talked about Forza. It looks like a racing game. It looks like a racing simulator.
Yeah, I've never played any Forza games, so it's a racing game.
I was really unimpressed. Like I said, my first reaction was, holy crap, Need for Speed looks a lot better. So I want to talk about the world premieres because they're the only games that I think are honestly worth talking about besides like I'm going to give Cuphead a shout out because I've been waiting for that game for years and I think it looks awesome.
Mm.
So let's talk about the premieres here. I'm going to go in reverse order of what you have listed here because I really, really want to fucking talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ.
So you don't want to talk about Life is Strange Before the Storm?
Oh, I didn't even see that there. I don't care. I haven't played Life is Strange. I'm not interested. I don't care. Do you care about that game?
No, it's just it's interesting because Life is Strange happened a couple years ago. I guess Square Enix is like publishing it now. I have no idea, but this is a prequel, and then the actual developer is developing a sequel. Like, so it's just very strange.
Life is strange.
Huh?
I don't know.
So yeah, like you said though, Dragon Ball FighterZ, that game,
wow,
looks so sick.
Wow, dude.
Arc system works. The dudes behind Guilty Gear are making a MVC 3-on-3 kind of style fighting game,
dude.
Dragon Ball characters, which we've seen so many Dragon Ball Z fighting games, but this seems like it has the care put into it that the other ones have not even remotely reached. This looks really cool. This looks like it could be an Evo staple for several years to come too.
I really hope so. It's being developed by a real fighting team for the first time pretty much ever. So that's like, I'm already sold. Couple things here. I played Dragon Ball Xenoverse, which was it was brought on this kind of resurgence of Dragon Ball fighting games.
Well, it's not a fighting game though. It is an open world action game that uses elements of fighting game stuff.
You were in a 3D environment and all you do is punch things. That is the only thing you do. Like, is Smash Brothers a fighting game? Is Dragon Ball a fight? Like, I mean,
since you literally only fight in that, then yes, but there's like traversal and like other weird shit. Is Double Dragon a fighting game? Is Battletoads a fighting game? No. There's differences.
There is differences, but in a game like that, you're like, yeah, you're traversing this world.
Okay, so we've agreed that Dragon Ball Xenoverse is a beat 'em up.
Oh God, man. I mean, right? No, come on, you're killing me here. No, it's not. You're pissing me off with this. Xenoverse was less of a fighting game. It was more like it had very MMO controls where you just had like you weren't doing these crazy combos. Really, you pretty much just had hotkeys for your special moves. So it was more of a whatever. Who fucking cares? But what Xenoverse did well, Nick, was capture what I think, honestly, for one of the first times, I've played almost every Dragon Ball Z fighting game, okay? Xenoverse really captured to me what it felt like. Like, I felt like I was playing, like I was in these fights, and I felt like it really captured the spirit, the feel, not just the look, and like, I've said physics too many times today, but it felt like a fight you were watching in the anime, where other games, they either didn't look right or they didn't feel right. There have been some exceptions, but I thought Xenoverse really nailed the feel of what combat is like in the show.
Mm.
Really love the game. I haven't played much of the second one, but it's more of the same pretty much. So this, I think, when I saw the trailer for this and looked at some of the gameplay demos, this feels more like Dragon Ball Z than any game I've seen ever.
Yeah, it looks really good. It has that cel-shaded anime style that Guilty Gear has really embraced.
Yeah,
with their last game. I wonder if you're actually going to like the gameplay of this, though, because it is a super fighting game.
My favorite fighting game ever is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And if it can capture that with Dragon Ball Z characters, I am so far up this game's asshole, dude. Like, it's not even funny.
You're going to get a fight stick?
No, I don't get why people like fight sticks. I don't get it. They're clunky. They're unnatural. Your hands are all fucked up like this, like carpal tunnel, like to the max. And the joystick or the thing, it's not right.
In my opinion, controllers are evil.
little prequel knowledge for you there.
Fighting games started in the arcade, so it makes complete sense for fight sticks to exist. And when you're doing the types of inputs that a game like Street Fighter uses, a fight stick is way more natural than a thumbstick is. So I understand that. And it seems like from what I've heard with hands-on time that people have had with this game is that it is like quarter circles and Street Fighter kind of inputs. So maybe that's a thing that is real. I'm not sure. I obviously I haven't played this game, and it could be just a character by character basis.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be doing those kind of movements, then yeah, a fight stick would be easier to do that stuff. I can't do a Hadoken with
Really?
with an actual gamepad. No, my fingers go completely retarded. I can't. I ended up jumping. It's like it's dumb.
Okay, so because I've spent my entire life playing fighting games with a controller, obviously games like Street Fighter, honestly, I think are a little more difficult with a D-pad. When you bring a joystick in, it's a lot easier to emulate what you do on the fight stick, but it's in a much more comfortable form factor. So I don't know. I'm not a fight stick kind of guy. I don't think I'll ever will be. And I'm not going to play this game competitively, so I don't need to be. And you know what? I kicked ass at MVC too. I still kick Max's ass. And he always said, of course, well, I'm not a Marvel vs. Capcom guy. I play real fighting games. Suck my dick is what I got to say. Shout out to our boys on the Hill Have Eyes podcast. Sorry.
Precipice Between Two Hills.
Precipice Between Two Hills. Go check them out. They used to be the #1 powerless podcast, but now I don't know what their shtick is now.
We're the #1 powerless podcast.
No,
I don't know.
That's terrible. So yeah, I kicked ass at that game with a controller. I love that game. If this can feel anything like that, like, dude, this is my dream Dragon Ball game.
Heard good things.
So, I mean, visually, it's stunning. It looks like the show. It feels like the show. It's so stylized, though, in a way that the show kind of couldn't be because of the era it was produced in, I feel like. Like, this looks even flashier than the show somehow.
Well, it's also a cohesive art style, which, scene by scene, that Dragon Ball Z varied in quality just because of how fast they're trying to crank it out.
Right. It's amazing to me that this franchise is still as relevant as it is 30 years later. It's amazing, dude. It blows me away.
One last thing before we move on to a different game. Something very minor that they do is when one of your characters is knocked out and another character is brought in, there's a quick little scene where they mash their arms against each other and whatever they're fighting, but then it resets to neutral. So for fighting game fans out there, that's an interesting take on the 3v3 kind of fighting game. My
last note here is I really hope that we get an English voice cast.
We probably will. I would imagine we would, right?
It seems like it's going to be kind of a marquee title.
This is slated for early 2018, so what they were showing is definitely what they've been working with, so Japanese stuff.
Right. I played Extreme Butoden on the 3DS. I think it was an admirable attempt at a 2D Dragon Ball Z fighter. Thought it was really great for what it was. It wasn't the deepest game in the world, but it was really cool. The art style was fun. But it was Japanese-only voices, which really ruined it for me when I was playing with the sound on.
Because I think everyone can agree that nobody likes the Goku Japanese voice actor. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, that looks awesome. Fuck yeah. We got 2 more world premieres here. Two pretty big ones.
Well, one pretty big one. I've never heard of the Metro series, so maybe I'm weird.
2033 and Metro Last Light? Really?
Never heard of those. But when they showed it, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. They played that overused 28 Days Later song. There were zombies. It kind of gave me like a Fallout kind of vibe as far as the setting.
Yeah.
There was a zombie bear shooter stuff.
Wasn't he a robot bear? No, that was... There
were a lot of bears.
State of Decay with the robot.
State of Decay had a robot bear.
Yeah.
And then Days Gone had another zombie bear. A lot of bears. But yeah, was that gameplay, do you think? Because it didn't have like a HUD. Was that like an optional thing? I'm not even sure what's going on there.
I think it was gameplay. And this is what I'll tell you. So I played both Metro games briefly. Got them on a Steam sale. The Metro Last Light especially was kind of the top tier staple, like along with the most recent Crisis game, which I think is now 10 years old.
About 8 years old, maybe.
Yeah. Metro Last Light, kind of staples when testing PC, doing benchmarks and testing specs.
So it was as badly optimized as Crisis was?
The thing about Crisis is that thing was such a beast of a game that, like, at the time, there was literally no hardware that could run that game. And for years, there was still no hardware that could run that game to the max.
Man, no wonder they don't pay their employees.
Yeah, no shit. Anyway, this game, in the PC world anyway, very renowned. It got like a dual pack release on console, which nobody bought. It was in value bins at Walmart almost immediately.
And how long ago was the last one?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, 4 years ago.
Was it 360 generation then?
Yeah, but I don't think it came out on consoles until the remake. But here's what they did was they completely remade the engine. And they re-released both games on PC. It was the Metro Redux or whatever.
Was it a proprietary engine?
I think so. I don't know enough. I feel like, but they completely overhauled everything. They rebuilt both games in the new engine, and the games looked significantly worse to me immediately. And so this is how I think this was gameplay. Was it looks exactly like the remakes in the new engine. It looked. I mean, just the weird sort of slick, almost clay. I don't know how to describe it. It's just it.
No, I understand. I know what you're saying. You got that wet look.
Yeah,
all over the place.
It doesn't look great. I mean, I guess it looked fine. But I think it looks worse than the old builds for sure.
Part of the reason why it made me think of Fallout so much is that it had that kind of Xbox 360 era brown palette look, which a lot of games now, like they veer so far away from that. They want those colors. They like having colors in their games. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Hella saturation.
Look at BioShock 1 versus BioShock Infinite. You know, like even in that span, you see that. So that kind of stuck out to me. But yeah, sci-fi post-apocalyptic shooter.
Yeah.
There's a train.
I don't know if people are going to be excited about it in the console, as far as the console space, but I know PC, like I said, those games have a really sort of cult following. I heard about those games for years before I finally picked them up.
Very loose release window on that for 2018.
Let's move the fuck on to AC Origins. We're going to lump up the UB conference with I just want to talk about everything we've seen about the game.
Okay. Because I think they showed actually quite a bit of Assassin's Creed.
They did.
At Microsoft.
So, okay. All right. First thing I got to mention here, okay? First thing I got to mention was this motherfucker gets on stage and he says, this year we're bringing you the perfect setting for an Assassin's Creed tale or whatever, right? And I am just like, I do the Jackie Chan, the classic, what the fuck meme. Like, the perfect setting? Really? Not feudal Japan? Ninjas? Like, you want to talk perfect setting we've been asking for a decade now? Perfect setting, my dick. Fucking Egypt of all places.
To be completely fair, the actual origin of the word assassin has to do with Egypt, like, so that makes sense, both real life and in lore. So,
but I'm saying, as far as like, if you want to look at things like architecture, terrain, feudal Japan's probably the most like, besides fucking Venice or whatever.
It's inevitable to give it time.
Well, we've been saying that for 8 years. Egypt to me, listen to me, I love ancient Egyptian history. This is why I love Assassin's Creed 4 so much, was because I was a huge pirate dude growing up. I love studying pirates, fucking ancient Egypt, and like medieval motherfuckers jousting and fucking, you know, Knights of the Round Table shit. Like that intrigued me as a kid. So I love that they're going to Egypt. The pyramids, like I hope there's a fucking maybe they learned their lesson in Assassin's Creed 3 where they don't want to trivialize history too much, but I want a mission where like I'm responsible for knocking the fucking nose off the Sphinx. How fucking cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
Like, that'd be super cool, man.
This might be the second best Prince of Persia game ever made.
Zing. Well, hey, you know what? It is Ubisoft, so more power to them.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard a rumor that they're actually working on a Prince of Persia game and that they're like, you know what, let's just make this Assassin's Creed instead.
I mean, would that shock you?
No.
Not at all.
It's probably not the first time that's happened either.
No. I think it looks cool, man. It looks... I think there looks like more RPG elements. They've overhauled the combat system.
Yeah, loot in an Assassin's Creed game.
Right? Proper loot.
Interesting.
Did you see the menus? The menus were straight out of Destiny.
The Destiny menus.
Oh, my God. Which, I think in theory, the Destiny menus work better than a typical, like, scroll through one line at a time. But it didn't even work in Destiny that well. It was slow and clunky, and your cursor was, like, moving through a stick of butter. So I think it looks cool, though. It looks like maybe it's focused a little more on the RPG stuff, building your assassin up, and I'm going to pick it up. If it gets decent reviews in the week leading up to it, I'm picking it up day one.
And it's the same studio that did Black Flag, so that was your fave.
It's got flaws, yeah, but it's the best Assassin's Creed game there is. So, not only from a narrative standpoint, but from the control scheme of the ships and controlling your guy, and graphically, it's, I think, the prettiest one. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. This will be cool. Although what they've shown, I'm worried about. I want to get more into the nitty gritty of like ancient Egyptian lore and like maybe the supernatural, the paranormal. Like,
yeah, they had some like interesting iconography, kind of. There's a dude wearing like a jackal head, so very Anubis style.
Right.
I'm not sure how deep they're going to go into the fantasy. They didn't show anything from the Animus, so that's good at least.
I hope they get, honestly, just give me a fucking period piece where I get to play as an assassin. I don't give a fuck. I know they have to explain your HUD and your powers like through the Animus. Like that's sort of like the the delivery mechanism for like your assassin vision and some of these other things. But like the parts we get, that was the worst part about Black Flag. At least in the old games, the real world elements were kind of interesting because you were following this cast of characters, Desmond and his crew. Like it was interesting enough to keep you engaged for at least the first, couple games, first 2, maybe 3 games. But by Black Flag, like the story was wrapped up. You got ripped out. You had no HUD. You had to sit through these fucking cutscenes. It was just unbearable. I don't want that. Get rid of that. Just let me fucking run around Egypt, motherfucker.
Yeah, we'll see what they've learned. They took a year off and they're back with a vengeance.
Yeah. What I'm worried about as far as like the terrain, like it's like ancient Egypt was not very dense. You're not gonna be running around on fucking rooftops like you are in some of the old. I mean, you are probably, but like it feels like it won't be as expansive. I mean, scaling a pyramid, that's gonna be fucking cool.
Yeah, riding a camel. They showed that too.
Camels, yay, camels. Camels
having
excite me.
Having that eagle that you just sort of control. Also, I don't know. That's a weird game series. I don't understand. Yeah. Want me to run through the exclusives and see if anything struck a note with you at all?
I don't think we need to do a whole run through of them all, but I want you to, if anything sticks out to you, just give it to me. What are you excited for? Anything catch your eye?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily for me, but PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that's been like blowing up Steam for the past like month. Like that game has 3 million players and it is a open beta. Basically, it's the early access, and Xbox they have the exclusive rights for that game. That game's not going to come out on PS4. That's really cool. Good for them. I have no interest in playing it. It's battle royale, 1 versus 100. Try to survive while the circle gets smaller. You get the drill. Yeah. Deep Rock Galactic, that was Minecraft with dwarves. Weird. State of Decay 2, that was another zombie game.
This should have been called State of Decay PS2 because this also looks like shit.
Yeah, it was a little bit rough.
But it had a robot bear, so...
Yeah, that's a survival zombie game, a little bit closer to Left 4 Dead, but it's very focused on resource management and multiplayer, so it kind of has a different play loop to it. Darwin Project, that was really weird to announce. That's like the really cartoony looking game, but that was literally another Battleground style game where it's a battle royale.
Is it that was one with Terry Crews in the intro?
No.
Okay.
That's Crackdown.
Okay.
They showed Black Desert, which is a Korean MMORPG. They showed The Last Night, which is a pixel art platformer, cyberpunk style game. Looks very pretty. Yeah. I'll be interested to see what the gameplay of that looks like, because they just showed like a lot of weird kind of moving around cutscenes kind of stuff.
Which is the one with the little man with the guitar?
That was The Artful Escape.
That looks kind of cool.
That looks like a weird adventure game. That was very bizarre, very paper cutout kind of style. Then they showed Sea of Thieves for way too long, with no release date. That's been in like an open beta for a long time. It's just a multiplayer pirate game.
Yep.
It'll have a small niche audience, but that's not like a game for the masses.
So there's a running theme here, and this is what I thought when I was watching the conference. And I started skipping ahead because I didn't watch the conference live. I started skipping ahead because everything they showed, they all feel like these cheapy, run-of-the-mill MMO sort of influence games and trying to translate it into a console experience. That's the vibe I got when watching it, and I just started skipping through because I was like, this all looks like, exclusive. Like, there's nothing meaningful here for me. So I don't know. I mean, do you get what I'm saying though? Like these cheapy...
I guess that's fair. I wouldn't say cheap. I mean, a lot of indie games, sure, but I wouldn't say that they're cheaply made necessarily. Moving on to Tacoma. That's a follow-up from a studio that I can't remember the last game, but some people I listen to are fairly excited about that. That has a release date though. It's coming out in August. Super Lucky's Tale, which is a follow-up to a VR exclusive on the Oculus Rift.
Oh, exciting.
That's it's a 3D platformer, collectathon style, beautiful music. I thought it had a very charming kind of vibe to it. Something that Xbox probably doesn't have. I mean, PS4 doesn't have, unless you count like Yooka-Laylee, but that's cross-platform. But as far as like an exclusive, I think that's fairly interesting. It's coming out in November. Cuphead, which has been shown for a few years now, that kind of old-timey animation, like early Mickey Mouse cartoons kind of style.
This honestly excites me.
It used to be a boss rush, but then people were complaining that wasn't enough, and so they added a platforming element, which I'm not sure how much of that will actually end up being in the final game. That's coming out in September, so got a couple months to wait for that.
I'll pick it up for sure.
Yeah, very beautiful, very cool style. Crackdown 3. Never played any of the first two Crackdowns. People apparently have attachment to that, so that's, great
Terry Crews will sell me on anything, man.
Terry Crews is awesome. I love Terry.
Like, Terry Crews could sell me on sucking a dick. I'm just saying. Like,
that's not a hard sell.
got him.
Then they showed Crackdown 3 is coming out in November. They showed a game called Ashen, which seems like I heard a little bit more after the conference, but from what they showed, it was very Dark Souls cooperative kind of gameplay, very creepy. The characters look like they're made out of clay. There's no eyes. It's very dark and ominous. Had a really cool look to it, I think. Then they showed Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which you own the first game. You've played maybe an hour of it.
Yeah, I haven't played
I'm assuming, because you are very bad at continually playing a game.
Yeah.
Very pretty game, though.
Very pretty, very interesting mechanics as far as like this energy you're collecting to like power up some of these weird moves you have. Like, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's kind of a typical, Metroidvania inspired, I think it's cool. It's like it did well enough that's getting a sequel. Like that's cool. I mean, is that technically an indie game at this point? Yeah. Or okay, I didn't know if like fucking Xbox owns it now or like
Microsoft is publishing it.
Right,
and they have exclusive rights.
But they're not funding and developing it with one of their...
I say like I'm very liberal when it comes to my viewpoints on indie development. That EA A Way Out game, that's an indie game, but it's being published by EA.
Right.
Like I think that's still in my mind. I classify that as an indie game.
Well, no, totally. It's like No Man's Sky. Like No Man's Sky had full weight of Sony behind it, but they did not have a AAA budget or AAA resources to make that game happen. They had 12 guys.
They had that money not for development, but they had that money for marketing.
Yeah.
Which I think you can get really sticky with whether or not something's indie, but I mean, in my mind, that's an indie game.
Sure, totally. Okay.
Other stuff they showed was they talked about some Minecraft stuff, and really weird, they're talking about like cross-platform play with a PC and with Nintendo.
That's awesome.
So we saw a Nintendo Switch in the Microsoft press conference.
Dude, Nintendo is fucking everywhere, dude. Everywhere.
Really bizarre. But yeah, then they were talking about it's a server thing. I don't play Minecraft, so I don't want to botch it, but some people I'm sure were excited. Then they showed Code Vein, which is a new Bandai Namco game. It's anime Dark Souls, vampires and stuff. Then they showed for quite a bit Shadow of War, which is the follow-up to Shadow of Mordor.
Looks exactly like what we should have expected, which I think that's fine.
Yeah, not a huge leap graphically. It doesn't need a huge leap. I don't think games really need graphical updates for sequels anymore. It is like, say what you want about asset flipping, but as long as it's new content, new gameplay, new story, whatever, if it's a sequel, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
I think that part of the problem, though, with what the original game was, I think they did great not hyping that game up, the original Shadow of Mordor. Like, that game just kind of coming out to rave reviews, like, that really worked for them. Mm-hmm. That game really was a one-trick pony. I enjoyed it. It was 9 hours. I blew through the campaign. I really enjoyed it. 9, 12 hours, whatever. But there wasn't a lot to do. It was very samey. By the end of the game, I was like, all right, I've seen all this. I've done all this. Until the final boss encounter anyway, which was fine. This game looks like more of the same, and I think now that there are expectations surrounding it, that could bode ill.
I think it seems like they added a lot to this game.
Really?
And that has also similar consequences of what people are expecting from it.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole like mechanic where you're setting up your armies and they have different weaknesses and strengths, and you see your opponent's army and they have weaknesses and strengths too. It's like this, they took Shadow of Mordor and then they added like a real-time strategy or turn-based strategy skin to it. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that's actually going to translate into good gameplay, though.
I hope it's going to be okay. It's another game that I want to pick up because for some reason, like I must have bought it on a sale or something, but I played through it in 15. I want to say spring 15, and that came out fall 14. Yeah, so I played it in spring and had an enjoyable time with it. For some reason, I played it on PC actually with the Xbox One controller. For some reason, that game, of any game I've ever played on my PC, that game pushed it to the limits, maxed out. So, of course, maxed it out. Yeah, my computer would go from like 27 Celsius to like 43, 44. Only on that game. It would never peak past like 35 in any other game, literally any other game. And this game, it would go to 43, 44 and just fucking cook. It was a beautiful game. I think that's why I have no problem with them. Like you said, asset flipping. Like, it's still one of the better looking games of this generation, I think.
It's interesting. I didn't think it looked very great. But compared to Shadow of Mordor, it didn't look that much better, which is bizarre, though, because Shadow of Mordor came out on PS3 and Xbox 360 also.
Yeah.
It was part of that time frame where everything was cross-platform. So I feel like they could have put more work into making it look better, but at the same time, if the content is there, I can't knock it too much for it not looking gorgeous.
I mean, I guess, like I said, I played it on PC and thought it just looked phenomenal. It was beautiful. So...
and then, we talked about Anthem. They showed a big sizzle reel of all the ID at Xbox, which is the independent developers that they work with to try and get their games on. Didn't say anything about exclusivity, so I'm assuming they were just like, check out all these games, because they're really pushing that message of there's a large variety of games on the platform.
This is a big fucking list of things that I did not see.
I put an asterisk on ones that I thought looked pretty cool. So Battle Right is like a kind of MOBA style action fighting brawling game.
That's what we need more of.
I mean, what other ones are there?
More just weird multiplayer games that feel like, they'll have a couple 100,000 players. It won't ever make its mark in the world. It'll just kind of come and go. And it's just like, there were like 14 games like that on this list. Like you said, MOBA inspired multiplayer, like.
Battle Right I thought was interesting. Brawl Out is literally Smash Brothers. River Bond looked really cute. It's like this voxel kind of glowing adventure game. Kind of remind me of something like a Zelda game would look like on a 2D platform. Got a good vibe from that. And then Ooblets, I have no idea what it is, but I've heard people compare it to Animal Crossing meets Pokemon. So immediately that catches my attention.
Ooblets. Dude, the names on this fucking list. Minion Masters, Dunk Lords. Like, this is the B team, bro.
Minion Masters, Forced to Duel. Yeah, that's a good name.
Hello, Neighbor. Robocraft Infinite. Like, this is the fucking
Hello, Neighbor looked
dude.
interesting. Kind of. It looked like an adventure game. Showed a scene where you throw a rock into someone's house and then you hide yourself in your own house and barricade the door, but they burst in.
Oh,
It's really weird. Very cute. Yeah. And then only thing else Microsoft was talking about was the backwards compatibility with the OG. Showed off some Crimson Skies.
That's cool, but it says a lot about your company and your console that you're selling. Like, hey, you still have these old games laying around? You can play them on the... It's like, no, dude. No. I've got one Xbox game. One.
I think it's a nice gesture, and it shows that they like their fans. I don't know. Like, they don't have to do that. They're not making sales off of that. They're just doing it to be like, yeah, our fans want to play Crimson Skies, so we're letting them.
So fucking sell it again.
And it's also nice in a game preservation front because there's no good Xbox emulator. So unless you have an Xbox, there's literally no way to play an Xbox game.
I guess that's fair. I mean, I guess that's cool. I wonder how big this list will be. Like, the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility is awesome. Huge fucking list.
Almost 400 games.
I mean, it's anything worth playing pretty much is you can play on Xbox One.
Yeah, Xbox doesn't have like a great library or anything like that, but it'll be nice to be able to play 100 odd games off of the original disc or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I own like maybe 20, maybe 14 even, like 14, 15 360 games, and a lot of them are backwards compatible. Like I went on and played like Lego Star Wars, and like all games you can play elsewhere, but like I have the disc for them, and I can just pop it in and play it. Things like even like South Park, Stick of Truth, like that's cool. I can just pop it in my Xbox. That's backwards compatible. That's awesome. I got to give Microsoft props here. They could have really just beat the fucking 4K, beat that horse, dead as a doornail. But instead they said, we have this console, check it out. And then just showed us games for an hour. Like, that's cool. Even though I think the games are a bunch of crap nobody will really care about on a wide scale. Like, step in the right direction. Just focus on games. Tell us how many great things are coming and move on. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I think Microsoft had a perfectly good E3 press conference.
I don't think there were any bad E3 press conferences, to be honest. I think Bethesda is the closest to bad you could get. And I don't want to spend too long on Bethesda here because it's literally all just a bunch of re-releases and 2 games that we will never play.
Potentially, yeah.
3 versions of Skyrim.
Well, they only showed 2 versions of Skyrim. For Bethesda, though, they had a really good conference in that it was 40 minutes and the pacing was awesome. And watching it, I was never like, oh, this is dragging on forever. This is really boring. Like, they showed me stuff like I don't pay attention to Elder Scrolls Online. So when they showed me, oh, Morrowind, like, okay, good for them. Or like the Creation Club, I was like, all right, paid mods. but they didn't go on and on and on and on and on about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't 90 minutes. It was a 40-minute presser.
The VR titles, I think, are kind of cool. I think Doom VR is honestly going to be the only one like worth checking out.
Well, yeah, especially since Fallout is going to be a full 60. Like, that's going to be a $60 game. And they've already confirmed that there's no like save crossover stuff, so you can't like pick up your game and play it in VR. Like, so,
last pod I was talking about how I'd like to get my hands on a Skyrim VR just to experience that world in a different way. But the more I look at a gameplay and kind of the graphics of that game, like it was dated in 2011. 6 years later, it's like, egad, like getting that up close and personal, like it probably would look like shit. I think Fallout was going to look like shit in VR. I think Doom had, like I said, the only potential to really be not just a nifty niche experience, but like a new, I don't want to say innovative, that's a stretch, but just an exciting way to experience that game. It's very stylized. The graphics, it's the best looking Bethesda game.
Yeah, I think the speed and the impact of the gameplay lends itself to a very interesting experience with VR, and the scale of like the demons that you're fighting against is going to be that's more compelling than anything in Fallout. More so in Skyrim. It would be cool to like be like, oh shit, that's a dragon. But like you were saying, the resolutions, like the textures are not going to look very good when it's actually like up close and personal. So I've yet to try any VR headset, so I can't speak with experience, but that's just from my layman's kind of outside looking in perspective. That's how I feel about it.
You played Doom, right?
Yes.
That's a game I wouldn't mind trying, but I don't like scary things.
You would really like it. It is. It's not scary. It's just there's demons, but
startling.
They're not startling either. It's just action. Did Halo scare you?
Well, no, because I only beat the story in Halo 1, and that was cheesy as fuck.
It's as scary as Halo.
It's startling, man. There are like demons ripping heads off and gory guts, and I don't like that.
Whatever. It's really fast. It's action. Like, that is a game that the gunplay and the movement is so good feeling. I want every game to play like that, but literally you can't. So
it's very fast paced from what I've seen. Very, very quick.
Interesting to see that with Doom, they went with that point and click travel method, where for everything they've heard beforehand was that they actually had walking around and movement actually okay and nailed down, that people weren't getting sick, kind of like Resident Evil ended up doing. But seems like they took the tried and true method out. I've
read things about VR and how like the key to keeping people from getting motion sick is X, Y, or Z. There's all these different things. Like one way is like putting a virtual nose in your headset, because you're always looking at your nose, but your brain ignores it, right? Which is kind of fucked up to think about. You start thinking about it, and all you see is your nose. Like, it's putting a virtual nose in to help like ground you, and it feels more real. Like things like frame rate, like still, the frame rate is not where it needs to be. I think for VR to really be successful.
Yeah, I think some of the better VR headsets are actually at 144.
Yeah, which is closer to where you need to be to truly be immersed. VR, we don't need to get on that again. But going through the list here, like Elder Scrolls Online, like you said, okay, that's old news.
People play it. I mean, obviously, if there are enough people playing Elder Scrolls Online, they're not going to see an Elder Scrolls 6 for another 5 years.
Which is so fucked up, just to protect that property. Like, it frustrates me, man, because that game was disappointing on all fronts. It didn't feel like an MMO, and it didn't feel like an Elder Scrolls game. But now, people are jumping on the Morrowind thing because they're seeing like completely remade version of this beloved classic. And it's like, man, get us a real fucking RPG.
No, they'll remake Skyrim another time.
I wouldn't
Skyrim
be shocked.
on Switch, I think we're 1 year away from Skyrim on iPad.
I don't know, man. I don't think the iPad is anywhere close to the Switch in terms of power.
It's not, but Skyrim, they're using a better version of Skyrim than the original version on Switch. It looks like some sort of variation of the VR version on PS4 and the remastered version that came out last October or November.
So that's the thing about the Switch, and we don't need to get crazy about this either, but the Switch is a very powerful console, but there are just inherent limitations to not having the cooling you need, so you can't have the processing power you need to like look at even games like Mario Kart. There's like no anti-aliasing. If you look up close, dude, it's just all jaggies.
I don't think Skyrim benefits from anti-aliasing that much. It's an old-ass game.
Looking at what I've seen from that game, it's like I think it looks worse than the original version, even though I'm sure some things are better. Maybe it's better textures. Maybe it's better, I don't know, this or that. But like, there's no anti-aliasing, and draw distance is going to be probably the worst in any version.
Well, I'm leaning more towards that Skyrim's going to be out on everything before we see a new game in the Elder Scrolls franchise.
Well, they only just started getting things like Knights of the Old Republic and like games like that. Only in the last couple of years they start porting to tablets. I think we're away. Like Skyrim looks dated, but dude, that'd be a crazy thing. It'll be a couple years before it's on a fucking TI 86. Okay, couple years. But anyway,
they'll do it though.
Dude, highlight of the Bethesda conference, no brainer.
Quake Champions.
Oh God. No, tell me.
Right.
What's the fucking
Dishonored 2
highlight?
DLC.
Oh, who fucking cares?
People who played Dishonored 2, I'd imagine.
Yeah, all 7 of them.
I was very impressed by both Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein 2. I thought both of those they showed really well.
They look like games.
Evil Within 2, very spooky, a lot of milk, very Death Stranding-y.
Which is such a weird comparison to make, considering we've seen nothing from that game. It's like, it's just like so Kojima. He's like,
well, Evil Within is also really Japan, so Kojima's very Japan.
Yeah.
It sticks out for Bethesda with very Western grounded like style.
Like I said, though, I think the highlight of the conference for a couple of Nintendo nerds was obviously seeing that jaggy fucking 2011 ass knight on the horse jumping off with a fucking green tunic and a yellow hat. Like that's fucking cool.
What are you talking about? He was wearing the Breath of the Wild blue tunic.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, he's wearing the blue tunic. He's holding the Master Sword.
Hold on, let me look this up now.
What conference were you watching?
I don't know, man. Apparently I was fucking...
You're watching the weird Chinese bootleg version, huh?
I'm gonna look this up now.
Painted it wrong.
I'm literally looking at a picture of a dude in a green tunic. Okay, here's one in a blue tunic.
Yeah, that's the one.
Again, I was not watching the conference live. I watched 0 conferences live. But the picture I saw was, right here. The fucking yellow and green. Anyway, whatever. This is what I get for not keeping up with things right away. But that's awesome. I did a little video that I saw with the chest opening up and
Amiibo at a Bethesda press conference. Super bizarre.
Dude, Nintendo was fucking everywhere. They showed up at Microsoft. They showed up at fucking Bethesda. They showed up at Ubisoft, man. And then they came and just had a real solid conference. Pissed nobody off. Like, that was, like, good on them. Anyway.
That pretty much wraps it up for Bethesda, though.
Yeah, it was fine. Like we said, it was fine.
Yeah, I watched all of them. I didn't watch all of them live. I watched 3 or 4 of them live. I watched Bethesda's, Sony's, Nintendo's, EA's live. I didn't watch EA's live. I lied. But I watched all of them. Next day was Ubisoft, and they just start off right off the bat. They just opened with Rabbids jumping into a coin block, and then Miyamoto popping on stage with a gun.
He was so happy.
Eves and Miyamoto were just hanging out with guns back to back.
How weird is that?
So much GIF potential from both of those.
So I've never played an XCOM game, but everyone's saying this is just like kiddie XCOM.
Yeah, and XCOM is very much a game that you'd be interested in because it's the gameplay of Final Fantasy. Or not Final Fantasy, but Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem,
I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, Fire Emblem. But it looked, I looked at this and I was like, okay, this is just a turn-based strategy game with fucking Mario and a gun. Like, it's so, like, if you would have told me that, like, hey, here's a game where you can shoot things with Mario, like, I am already sold. That's fucking weird as fuck. And, like, the weird art style where it almost looked like clay. Like, they almost looked like you reminded me of is, like, back in the day, remember our moms had this, like, weird polymer clay that you bake in the oven?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you made a Yoshi one time. It was just, it blew me away as a kid. It was this cool little Yoshi that you made.
Wish I still had that. That thing was so tight.
It was so fucking cool. It was so, like, that's what this game looks like to me.
Yeah, it works. I mean, that's an art style that lends itself well to the capabilities of the Switch, where you're not going to get super crazy textures rendered or what have you, but the models can exist and they look beautiful.
Yeah, I'm all on board for this game.
I heard, like, apparently the guy who worked on it, they had a little quick shot of him, like, he's crying because he made a Nintendo game, basically. He made a Mario game, and he's working for Ubisoft. He's working on making Rabbids games for 6 years, and now he modeled Mario, like, that's a really cool achievement for him.
What he's saying is, I've been working on Rabbids for 6 years. Save me. Like, this was a release from his prison.
10 years.
Oh, my God.
The first game came out in, like, 2007, but...
How would that be to be a developer for 10 years and all you have to your name is fucking Rayman spinoffs? That's terrible.
They sold well enough to have like 5 games.
That's terrible.
And they have like a cartoon in France now. So, I mean, I can't knock them for that. And the Rabbids, I don't think the Rabbids add anything to the gameplay of this game, but it's so bizarre that it does add in a way. Like, it's just, Mario is all about bizarre stuff. You can't look at a Mario game and be like, that's normal. I mean, sure, we've been conditioned to it because we've been playing those games for 30 years, but being Mario and picking up a flower and throwing fireballs,
it's weird.
That's not normal.
No, I think the
you're
Rabbids
stomping
fit
on turtles. You're killing weird Goombas.
Yeah,
the bizarre games.
I think the Rabbids fit in flawlessly.
That DK Rabbid.
It's so adorable, and it's just like goofy is the only word I was thinking when I was watching this. But in 3 years, no one will know that the Rabbids were anything but Mario characters. I promise you. Because they're going to make their way into another Nintendo property because that's just how these sort of things work. No one will know that the Rabbids were not originally Mario characters. I promise you, my 8-year-old brother probably thinks that now, and he's never played a Rabbids game. But if I just showed him that, like, he would just... So, good on Ubisoft. This is the hookup for them.
Yeah, looked really tight. It was a great start off to their conference.
I'm really glad that it's a different genre, that they're going out on a limb here, trying something new. Yeah,
apparently that was like Nintendo's one stipulation. They're like, don't make a Mario game, make a game that has Mario in it. And that's fantastic. That's what spin-offs should be, I think.
Absolutely. I'm way on board for this, man. I'm excited. This is a day one buy for me.
Yeah, I'll pick it up, definitely. That's coming out in August, so we got 2 months till that comes out. Oh, wow.
That's so soon. Hell yeah.
Yeah, like August 20-something. It's quick.
It's awesome.
Then they showed more Assassin's Creed, obviously.
Okay, we've talked about that.
Then they showed the Crew 2, which is
yay.
Motorsports, like, I don't know. So you can race in a boat or a car or a plane. It didn't tickle me at all. Then they showed South Park, Fractured But Whole, coming in October. I was hoping for a Nintendo logo at the bottom of that trailer at the end.
Oh. You know, I said Reggie was coming out to talk about Fractured But Whole coming to the Switch, but instead we got Miyamoto with a gun. So
yeah, I think that's a bigger win.
Yeah, I'm way happier with that.
But that remains to look really good, and the first game I liked a whole lot, so I'm fairly interested in playing that one.
I'm worried about it. Like, the more I've seen, you know, delays shouldn't worry you. They don't worry me. They shouldn't worry me. But like, just what I've seen in the revamp of the combat and then I don't know. I will see what happens. But if it can be as good as the first game, then it's all good.
It's not like the best part of the first game was the combat. The best part of that game was being in South Park and basically playing a season of South Park.
That is true. But the combat was really nice. That was like classic Paper Mario with the little action commands like that. Like, it's just, I guess you kind of had like the most broken class you could possibly have. But
yeah, I don't know what I did that made it so easy, but it ended up being that I just had like 3 things that I would do and I could just defeat anyone. So the combat was very trivialized for me.
Okay. See, it wasn't hard, but it was just enough that it was like, I could relax, play the game, get a laugh, kind of just enjoy what was happening.
Oh yeah, I was still engaged, and like the combat is not like the actual actions you're doing doesn't really add too much to it. It's mostly just the interactions of the characters that was entertaining.
Yeah.
So it'll still be South Park, and Matt and Trey still made the game, so it'll be still good. So that got pushed back to October, but that's not that long of a wait. Like, looking at the list of games that are coming out, I'm like, not like, oh man, I'll be bored for a month. Like, there's so much stuff coming out, and I can't even play my back catalog, so we'll never have any room to complain.
No.
Then Ubisoft very much went into Ubisoft mode, like classic Ubisoft, with the next few games, but they showed off this really weird thing with Elijah Wood. It's like this playable horror simulation. I have no idea what that game is, but it's a VR game called Transference.
Why?
Did you see that? Did you watch that?
No, I didn't see anything about it.
Okay, they didn't show anything about it. They just showed that Elijah Wood was in a conference room talking about, yeah, we really want to get into this VR thing, but it's like sounded like he's talking about making a VR game. But then the later it gets into the trailer, it sounds more like him talking is part of the VR game and that you're experiencing other people's memories. And it's really bizarre.
I don't know. Why? I mean, E3 press conference, the hype machine. Why?
Yeah, that was not hype.
Why is this the kind of shit we're wasting our time with? I don't get it, man.
Yeah, but it's called Transference. Supposedly that's coming out spring next year. Then they showed Skull and Bones, which is a PvPvE kind of pirate game teams of 5 trying to loot and pillage ships, and then other pirates come in. They want to pillage the loot also, but they're also trying to destroy you. And
so this
bow
is
combat.
This is just built on the Black Flag mechanics.
I would imagine it's inspired by that, but I don't know how much of that carries over like 1-to-1 gameplay wise.
Okay.
I didn't play Black Flag, so I would rely on you to tell me if it was very accurate. Did you watch the Skull and Bones?
Yeah, I saw it, but
you saw it, but did you actually like watch it? Because it was like 20 minutes of it.
Oh no, I did not watch 20 minutes. I didn't watch 20 minutes of anything at E3.
It was like 10 minutes. It wasn't that long. But yeah, that's supposed to come out fall of next year. I have no idea if I'm interested in that at all. It's very, very focused on that like PvP kind of stuff. It's like For Honor with boats.
Right.
It's very bizarre. They had a very short thing for Just Dance 2018, which surprisingly is coming out on the Wii still.
Ooh.
There's a market for that.
Yeah.
Then they showed South Park Phone Destroyer. Nobody had heard of, like, that's completely out of the blue. Yeah. But a phone game for South Park.
Yay, mobile.
Funny. I mean,
deeper down the mobile hole.
South Park, why not? Something that stuck out to me and was interesting to me was Starlink.
This will be expensive. Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily, because first thing they said after showing it was like, yeah, you can earn those items in game. They digitally, you don't have to actually like buy them.
Sure.
I'm sure there will be like a monetization for it, but I don't know. I'm not impatient enough to be like, I have to buy this. I don't have that weird broken part in me that I have to spend money on stuff.
You throwing some shade at your boy over here.
Apparently, it wasn't aimed at you, but if the shoe fits, then that's your fault. But
that's true.
I don't know. I thought the stuff that they were attaching to the controller. Okay, I should probably just explain this. Starlink, it looks like you're piloting a ship, and it's like spaceship combat, and shows going from like a base in space and then flying to a planet and then flying around like kind of Star Fox style, not on rails, but like flying around, shooting enemies. Like elements are stronger against other elements, and then they had this weird thing mounted on a controller where you'd be putting on like Toys to Life style, like Skylander style, putting on different parts to your ship to give it different abilities. So they're fighting an enemy that was ice type, and they're like, oh, we should put a fire type attack booster fire on our ship. And then they did that, and it was like very much more effective. Who knew? Fire is better than ice. I've played an RPG.
Shocking.
Then they had like some guy come out and was like, yeah, I'm a fan of I'm a kid of the 80s, so I'm a fan of like fantasy and sci-fi and toys. And at least for me, this I feel like is cooler as far as a Toys to Life kind of angle goes, because they look like actual toys and not like very bad statues.
Right.
Which is what the Skylanders were. Like, it's just a little statue, which, for you, I mean, you're an amiibo fanatic, so if it's like a character that you like, that's cool. But if it's just a toy, that's almost cooler. Like, I could see myself playing with a all-purpose kind of starship toy than I would like a bad statue of Pocahontas or whatever.
What's the thing? Like, the amiibo is like, my 8-year-old brother has tons of amiibo and Disney Infinity, and he had some Skylanders. They just sit on the shelf until he has to use them, and then the times he does want to play with them, like he just demolished this Bowser, because you want to play with them, you want to do things, but they don't. There are no points of articulation. There's no, they just get destroyed, and like you said, they're cheap.
Yeah, for like a character, you want to be able to pose it, but for like a spaceship, you don't have to pose a spaceship.
Right, you can actually do things with it.
So
without having
flying it around like that, I think that's kind of interesting and cool in a way.
Sure.
And the gameplay looked all right. And it's coming to Switch, and it was like a multi-platform thing.
Switch.
The coolest thing that stuck out to me is that it's being made in their Snowdrop engine, which is their engine that they use for all their things. And it's coming to Switch. So I'm wondering, is that like them saying, yeah, we're working on Snowdrop to work on Nintendo's platform? Because if so, that is really cool, because that says that Ubisoft is going to be capable of putting out their other titles onto the Switch.
Yeah, that could potentially open up some serious doors. I hope so.
Because like we're seeing with FIFA, with EA, is that their Frostbite engine, they haven't ported that to Switch yet. So it's using an old version of the game with like newer like the balancing is going to be the same as FIFA on the other platforms, but it's going to be a different engine, so that means that it's not going to have the single player mode or what have you.
Right. Well, hey, I just realized what time it is here. Let's blow through Sony so we can spend some time with Nintendo here. Let's see what happens. I have about half an hour before I have to get out of here.
You didn't want to talk about Far Cry 5 at all?
We touch on it in another pod. I think it looks good. It looks like what I expected, like what we said last pod. I don't think they showed anything new that really moved the needle for me. It was just like, all right, this is exactly what we expected.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt. I mean, yeah, I didn't get anything new from that. Steep got a DLC. Beyond Good and Evil, that's the big thing that people were freaking out about.
That broke the
internet.
internet.
For me, though, yeah, people, well, I mean, I don't know, maybe the people you followed, a lot of people that I followed were just like, yeah, that was cool, but they showed a trailer for this same game in 2008, and we saw nothing come from that. So this is a sequel from a game that came out like 2004, 2003, and you know, showing a trailer and then saying sign up to be our beta testers is not necessarily a good sign.
The game got scrapped. It's like it's been developed for 10 years. It got scrapped and they're bringing it back. And this was just, they wanted to hype it up, say it's coming in the next year or two. Like, and the fact that
they did not say that.
They didn't say anything?
They did not. They literally said, we're making the game.
Oh,
they showed, we spent all this money to make this gorgeous trailer. That trailer looked awesome.
Yeah.
They had the angry cuss monkey. Everyone was very, haha, we're so mischievous. And all to say we're making a game and not literally no gameplay.
I mean, the people I follow, like everyone was freaking out about it because everyone thought the game was dead. And now to see it revived, like I never played it. You told me about it.
It's really well regarded. It's people compare it to Zelda games. But I don't know. I haven't played it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Sony. A lot of stuff here. People, like I said earlier, the rhetoric surrounding Sony's conference was very negative, I feel like.
Except it was probably the weakest conference out of the six.
Well, here's the thing. It's all about expectations, right? People think, like E3, people go in expecting these earth-shattering revelations.
Just personally, though, you know from the pod we did last time that I didn't have high expectations for this conference either.
Right.
And I wouldn't say that they didn't meet my expectations, but I would still say that it's the least exciting out of the six that we saw.
They did a really good job. They revealed a few things. They showed the things that are coming. They showed us more about the things that we should be caring about, you know, Spider-Man, God of War, whatever, MVC, like, and then there were a couple of really nice reveals that I think went over really well. And as far as just games go, I'm more excited about just 3 things on this list than I am anything else outside of Nintendo.
All right. So yeah, Sony, they showed Uncharted 4 DLC. They showed Horizon Zero Dawn DLC.
Okay. All right.
Then they jumped into showing Days Gone again. They showed a different part than they showed last year. Still no release date on that game. That's not great.
Not great.
Especially for a zombie game that nobody really has like any expectations out of or excitement for, really.
It's just going to get lost in the shuffle of every other game that's just like it.
Yeah, probably. They showed Monster Hunter World, which I think might be the most interesting thing that they showed.
Fuck yeah.
Not Sony exclusive, to be fair. It's going to be coming to PC and Xbox One, which is really amazing. There's never been a Monster Hunter game on a PC.
Yeah.
That's coming out early 2018. The kind of keynotes I have for it is that it looks like a newer game. It doesn't look like it was made on the same PS2 graphics that every other Monster Hunter game has been made on.
You know, I think this is the best looking Monster Hunter game. I still didn't think it looked new. It still felt like a PS3 game, which is a huge upgrade for this franchise. I still think it looked old.
Yeah, no, it didn't look fantastic. But I think part of that is something that makes new games look new has to do with like the animation.
Yeah.
And for a game like Monster Hunter that's so heavily tied to the animations and how long moves take, it's very much like a fighting game where moves have startup and cooldown, and that's how the combat works. It's very intensive. That's why Dark Souls games will never look as nice as other games because of the animation, but that's like strictly a like gameplay element. So I can see where you're coming from, though.
I guess there are Nintendo fans who are going to want to play the new Monster Hunter game that we're getting on the Switch, but like after seeing this,
very bothersome that Capcom is Like, there's no reason that game couldn't be on the Switch. I don't think it's not that graphically intensive, like you were saying.
Yeah, pain in the ass to develop for.
Rumors floating about that, which I don't even believe them, but the fact that there are rumors that Sony basically said we'd want a Monster Hunter game that's not on a Nintendo platform for a nice change. There hasn't been a Monster Hunter on a Sony platform since PSP. At the same time, it's coming out to Xbox, and there's literally maybe 10 people in Japan that own an Xbox. So,
well, that's the thing.
Who knows?
There's no competition on PC or Xbox for Sony. This is essentially a Sony exclusive. They're going to sell millions of copies of this game. And if it was on a Nintendo console, nobody's buying it on PlayStation. Nobody will buy it on PlayStation if it came to the Switch.
It's just interesting because Double Cross is coming to Switch in Japan. There's been no... Capcom's basically said they're not localizing it, so unless Nintendo pays to get it localized, it's not going to come to the US or the West at all.
Ugh.
It's just really bizarre.
Fucking
Monster
lame.
Hunter never has really like taken off in like America or even like Europe, but I feel like there's room for it. Like there's obviously a gameplay loop that people in Japan love.
Yeah.
So like that made PSP successful. So
well, we'll get Worlds now, and it'll feel more like a modern game. I think it looked really cool, man. That fucking wacky T-Rex they showed, the head fin, like that was wild, man. I liked it.
No, yeah, it showed really well. They showed Shadow of Colossus with like a true remake, not a remaster, but like from the ground up.
This looked fucking amazing graphically.
It looked pretty cool. Yeah, it looked good.
The hair on those fucking monsters, man, like it looked really nice. And hearing that we get an optional control scheme, which we didn't even get in The Last Guardian, like, which the only people who actually liked The Last Guardian were people who made themselves like The Last Guardian because they've been hearing about it for 12 fucking years.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think people getting mad about a control scheme, I don't think that's a reasonable thing to be mad about.
That's like paramount in a video game. And at one point in time, really the only thing you had about a video game was how it controlled. Like imagine Mario without that control scheme. Like it wouldn't be Mario. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that it's underrated. And when you have good controls, no one wants to mention it. But when they're bad, it can ruin everything. So Last Guardian, like, I think that's why they're doing this is like, we have to kind of salvage, because it didn't sell terribly well. It didn't review terribly well. The people that I know who played it, only one person actually was like, yeah, I liked it. But I have a feeling that, like with most things, was you kind of have to force yourself because of hype. But all the people I listened to were like, it's what we expected 10 years ago, but it's 2016. Or did it come out in 17? It came out in 16.
Came out last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know. I didn't play it, so I guess I can't say anything. This looks really awesome. This is like Shadow of Colossus is like an all-time classic. People are always talking about.
It's weird that they're remaking it instead of making a new game.
You've got to get mileage out of those assets. That's what it is. I think that they saw that The Last Guardian failed critically and failed from a sales standpoint. They're just trying to get their mileage out of...
I doubt it's using any of the same assets as Last Guardian did. That character didn't look anything like the main character in Last Guardian. They're not very comparable games.
It's repurposing textures and, you know, the engine it's built in and
they could repurpose those textures into a new game. And this game's not being made with, was that Ueda?
I don't know. I think the ultimate comparison for me is like it took Nintendo 6 months to remake Wind Waker on a new engine with all new assets. They didn't even reuse assets. They were all new assets. It took them literally 6 months to make that game. Having the blueprint and everything, this is going to cost no money. It's going to take no time, and they're going to sell this for $60, and this is going to sell better than Last Guardian probably.
Apparently going to take time because that has a 2018 date, but no like window.
I guess we'll see what happens. But I don't think it's a bad move. I'd rather play this game than anything else I've seen from them. I actually bought this on PS3 because everyone talks about it, and it looks interesting. So seeing it with that new skin, I was really impressed with the trailer.
I think it just goes to show more that Sony's lack of interest in remastering, or not remastering, but having backwards compatibility is because they would rather just remaster games and sell them for $60 than allow people to play their back catalog. I
would rather get full HD remakes, HD quote unquote remakes of a lot of these games. I'd rather do that than go back and play the old version.
I'd just rather have new games most of the time. If I can play the old version, that's fine for me.
I understand that, but you know, I'm a graphics whore. I want my game to look as like that's the biggest thing for me is like there are tens of thousands of games out there. there's a game out there that gives me the gameplay I want, but also looks pretty. So I don't need to settle for a game that has gameplay but looks like shit. Like, I don't need to usually. And I get like you just want like tight gameplay and good mechanics and stuff, and I get that. But there's so many games I'll never play them all. So why compromise in one area when I can like get something sexy but also effective?
Speaking of games that look like total ass, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
Dude, it was kind of bizarre, like seeing how they have to kind of compromise visually to like fit someone like Zero next to like Captain Marvel. Like,
really, I don't think they have to compromise. Did you see Dante? Oh my god, he looked like an abused child.
Yeah, I saw
Chun-Li.
Chun-Li looks fucking retarded.
Those characters look so bad.
But it's not even a graphic thing; it's an art direction thing. Like, why did they make those decisions? You know, because I think MVC3, the first one and the weird iterative one, it had suffered the same problem. The characters look goofy as hell because it's not hand-drawn sprite stuff anymore. It's like you have to do this weird. They're taking 2D characters and they're taking what is supposed to look like a real human being and putting it into this weird halfway mashup of like 3D. Like, just it's bizarre. It's
being made by Capcom. They literally have made like the Capcom characters. They have those models. They know what Ryu is supposed to look like. They know what Ken is supposed to look like. They know what Chun-Li and Dante are supposed to look like. So why do they look like that? The Marvel characters don't look very good either, but for that, at least, like, they don't own those characters. They don't have models to work with for them.
They're just trying to unify like, the aesthetic across all these franchises.
They look unified. They all look terrible.
Yeah, no, totally. That's exactly it. I know you're trying to make a joke, but it's true. They all have the same aesthetic, even though it looks like shit. And that's why they made the decision. I don't think they think it looks like shit, but clearly the rest of the world does. Because, yeah, Chun-Li especially, that was making the rounds on the internet. He looks so fucking goofy. She looks like Steve Nash, dude. Like, what the fuck?
Who is ageless, to be fair.
Dude, that man, yeah, he's been 27 for many a year.
Yeah, so MVC Infinite coming in September. Yeah. Ooh, that's not rushed. Then they showed Call of Duty World War II. It's Call of Duty.
Yep.
They showed a lot of VR stuff, actually.
Oh, boy.
Neither of us VR, so we're not going to play that fishing game for Final Fantasy 15.
No, sir.
They showed more God of War and gave a release window for that.
I still don't know what kind of game this is.
Early 2018. Looks like a combination of God of War and cinematic Naughty Dog kind of style gameplay.
Yeah, I get the Naughty Dog feels, and it looked like all the gameplay they've showed feels like these boss battles. So you're fighting these big giant things, and it almost gave me like I know the combat won't be, but it gave me like a Dark Souls vibe, like where it's just fighting boss after boss. Because I don't know, is there going to be this, are you traversing this world, or is it going to be a platformer like old God of War games? You thought it was going to be kind of like what Tomb Raider is, where you're kind of exploring, platforming. What's it going to be? I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't really shown too much of that game, so I don't know. I have no idea.
It looks fucking amazing, like visually stunning.
Yeah, it looks tight, looks good.
Detroit, this game interests the shit out of me.
Yeah, have you ever played a David Cage game?
I have not.
He did Heavy Rain, which people talk about. He did something else, but I can't think of the name of it. I've never played any of those, so I'm not familiar with the style. It's very adventure, like new take on adventure games, similar to how Telltale has their take on adventure games, but this is a little bit more gameplay oriented. So they showed a different section than they showed last year. They showed a bit where you are basically starting a riot or not, or destroying cars or doing laser graffiti, but you're part of this android kind of like uprising revolution.
Right.
You've gained sentience, and then you're being treated as a second-class citizen, still being like your hardware. So I think it's definitely not a heavily trod on science fiction territory, but
wholly unique.
It'll be interesting. You know, it's still fine to have takes on that. So
I think it totally is, and we haven't seen a lot of that in video games. Like, we're getting a narrative-driven experience centering on this.
What are you talking about? The entire Mega Man series is about that.
Oh yeah, Mega Man, world renowned for its fucking compelling storytelling. Like,
hey man, I had a cartoon.
Oh my god, I've never seen that.
Really?
I'm gonna make a list there.
It's had multiple cartoons actually.
Yeah,
it's Detroit. It seems interesting. Still no release year even on that game.
Yeah. Dude, I heard the script's like over 1,000 pages or something. Like, this insane script. You're going to have like all these choices.
That means nothing to me.
I don't know, for a narrative-driven game with
not that the amount of script doesn't mean anything to me, but 1,000 pages, what does that mean? It's like saying this animation took 10 hours to make. What does that mean?
Okay, so traditionally, 1 page of script translates to about a minute of film.
Okay.
And obviously this is a different, I mean, that's a ballpark, but it's a pretty accurate gauge when you're looking at script length and how that translates. So for a narrative-driven, very cinematic sort of game, where it's all about making choices and you have multiple endings and different paths you can take, and supposedly not the way Until Dawn was, where like it gave you the illusion of choice and like some of the details would change, but like everything, all the major plot points were identical, no matter across different endings or whatever. It was pretty much all the same. This is supposed to actually be like you can go all over the map as far as the experience you're having, and you can really influence the story in these dynamic ways. It also means the game's going to be probably 6 hours long. It's going to be a very short experience. But hearing that 1,000-page script, like it actually sounds like, okay, we're actually going to have these multiple choices that can spiral into hundreds of different endings and hundreds of different experiences where like you can actually play the game 10 times in a row and experience 10 different games. That's the promise right now, it seems. And I hope that's true.
We'll see how that pans out. Still looks interesting.
Yeah.
Then Sony showed more Destiny, and they're just kind of strutting their stuff, having their exclusive strike and weapons and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we've talked about Destiny 2 a little bit, but
yeah. I mean, talk about asset swap, dude. Like this literally looks like the same game visually.
I don't think the problem with Destiny was the looks, though.
No.
I don't think anyone's ever said that, so I can't complain about it.
The thing is,
if the new content is better, then that's the win right there.
Well, no, like Destiny 2 is going to be Destiny 1 year 2. Like they've already got that game to where it needs to be. Destiny is what it's going to be for the next 5+ years. And like some of the stuff I saw, it was more like objective-based, team-based stuff. Like that's cool. That's really incremental. This is going to be Destiny 1, and that's fine by me. Like it'll be cool to jump back in at even playing field with everybody, but it's going to be the same game.
Then the big ender was quite a bit of gameplay from Spider-Man, which has a release year of next year. Still no like actual real title, I don't think. No. They've just been showing it as Marvel's Spider-Man. So take that for what that means. But
I think that should just be the final name.
What is your impression of this game?
It looks amazing. Visually awesome. Really captures the feel of what Spider-Man is, although we nailed that a decade and a half ago in video games. So it looks like another great Spider-Man game. Hearing that it's open world, the way Spider-Man 2 was, the movie adaptation, awesome game. Probably the best Spider-Man game. Probably. I don't want to commit to that. We've had a couple of good ones, but it's likely the best Spider-Man game. One of the first open world games that, most people played my age. People my age weren't playing GTA then. You're too young for it, right? It's like Spider-Man was kind of that first entry into like what an open world game was. It looks to make good on the promise of what the Spider-Man franchises, because there's several of them, never really became. And the movie adaptations we got the last couple years were not good.
And this gameplay trailer did not show any of the open world aspects, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I think they wanted to show the story beats more than they wanted to show traversal at this point. Which
is understandable. And I think the blueprint's there, again, like how to make an open world Spider-Man game. It's there. Follow it.
Well, I mean, it's been there, but like you said, they haven't really nailed it.
No. The main thing I'm worried about, like, okay, too many QuickTime events. I love how cinematic it is. It looks awesome. It's like, I wish I could see this in the movies.
Yeah, and I'm worried about that also, but I also just have a vibe that it's only going to be for these end of mission kind of events.
Right.
Which, I mean, part of the time I'd rather watch a cutscene, but cutscenes suck too, so there's got to be a way to interact with it, so QuickTime events is the easy answer.
News came out that you can't kill enemies in this game. I don't think that's an issue at all. It makes sense.
Oh yeah, Marvel would not allow that.
No, it tracks with the character. That's fine. The thing that worries me is web traversal when you're in the city. Like the thing that made Spider-Man 2 great in the open world was
the beautiful
way,
gray sky.
Well, yeah, but it's the way you traverse the world and the way the web slinging felt. Very different than any other Spider-Man game. As far as you had full like range of motion in the air.
Mm-hmm. There's no worry about realism at all. Your webs were literally just in the sky.
That's fucking fine.
But they're not going to have that in this game because people would complain probably.
You can still do it where like you latch onto buildings. There's the way to get around that, but it's having the full range of motion, controlling each axis, controlling everything about the physics of your character. You're not just like shooting and then propelling forward. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's a very unique feeling.
No, I know what you're saying though. Just the momentum.
Yeah, they need to nail that, or else this game is just not going to feel good. Because the Amazing Spider-Man games try to do that, and it felt like shit, and it didn't work.
I believe though, Insomniac has the ability to do that. Like you were ranting and raving about, well, not really ranting and raving, but you were very impressed with Sunset Overdrive, and they talked about, like, they mentioned behind closed doors that they took a lot of cues from that game in making this game.
Hell yeah. I think Sunset Overdrive is probably the most underrated game of this generation.
So imagine that, but you're Spider-Man.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly the feel it gave me.
With like Arkham kind of combat.
Yeah, which is fine. That's tried and true.
To be fair, though, I was really like showing stealth in a Spider-Man game. That was like really kind of funny to me.
Well, dude, that's my
own personal side.
There's a lot of stealth, and even classically in Spider-Man games, like there have been a lot of stealth missions. Like I was just playing through Shadow Dimensions, and there's a whole character devoted to like being stealthy. Spider-Man Noir, fucking awesome.
Yeah, I guess that literally makes sense for him as a character, but just from my exposure watching the movies and like the cartoons and stuff, there has never been like, oh yeah, Spider-Man, the stealthy guy.
Right. I don't think in the comics it translates better than like a cartoon where like,
yeah, you'd be boring to watch. I understand that, but that was my personal take while I was watching it.
All right, my man, this is the main event. It only took us 2.5 hours to get here, and I've got like 10 minutes, so that stinks. But
Nintendo,
who, like we said, we saved the best for last year. I think they probably had the best conference.
Oh yes, it was snappy. It was quick. It was great. I enjoyed watching that live, and just it was way more content than I expected. Like you and I spoke of this, and we're pretty like they could do really well, or they could do the safe stuff.
Yeah,
and I think they struck a really good balance of showing stuff for this year, and then showing a few like. Not really showing, but talking about like, yeah, we're working on a core Pokemon game. We're working on Metroid Prime 4. And here's also a Yoshi game that you can look forward to next year, and a Kirby game that looks way better than has any right to be.
Sure.
I was very happy with the entire conference.
They started off with like Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Right. Well, they had a sizzle reel, but I skipped that.
Yeah.
Because the sizzle reel showed Rocket League, and I was like, oh my God. But then they talked about that later. So yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Did you play any of the first two?
I did play Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Not very far. I mean, I put a couple hours into it. Kind of a weird mix between like an MMO style combat.
Yeah.
Is interesting.
I actually kind of like the combat in a way. I like being able to move around, and being able to move around during a basically turn-based combat is interesting. And I like it. Okay. Not a lot of RPGs do that, so this could be the one for me, I guess.
Makes it a little more engaging, I think. Easier to stay engaged anyway. Yeah,
so they showed a little more story kind of stuff, interesting characters. There was gameplay during Treehouse Day 2, which I caught a little bit of that. Just showing more like, yeah, the combat is pretty much the same. Then they showed Kirby, which doesn't have a subtitle or anything. It's supposed to come out next year, but they highlighted combining powers, which they haven't done since Crystal Shards, and that is awesome. I loved that mechanic. And they showed multiplayer, which for Kirby games is just a lot of fun. It's just running around being a weird OP pink blob.
Didn't they combine powers in Squeak Squad?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I didn't play that game.
I'm pretty sure they did.
But regardless, Crystal Shards I played and beat. Definitely. So that's like the one. That's my kind of cornerstone for the Kirby franchise.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. It looks beautiful too. It looks, it looks like Kirby. I'm excited to get my hands on it.
Pokemon, they cut to like the main guy at Game Freak, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
he's just sitting in his office looking like he doesn't want to be bothered, and he's like, "Yeah, we're so excited to bring Pokken over to the Nintendo Switch, and it's got all these extra characters." And before we go, we're working on the next Pokemon game for Switch. It's gonna come out in more than.
By the way,
it'll take a year, and just like okay, when they cut to him, I was like, they better not. Because they had that Pokemon Direct last week. It's like, you better not, Nintendo. You better not do me like this. But then that's a good announcement. I like that announcement.
Yeah, I think a week ago they didn't have this planned. I'm not going to lie. I think honestly, even a few months ago, they had their lineup for E3 set, and then they realized they kind of had to slip these things in, which is why you just got a splash screen and you got a weird video announcement. and like they had to throw these kind of things in because imagine without Pokemon, without Metroid, this is kind of a bummer of a conference.
No, without Metroid and Pokemon, I think it's still a fine conference.
Fine.
Those were just like not the worst one. I'd still say it's better than Sony's. But yeah, just saying Pokemon, like I'm sure they have assets to show and they have stuff they could show, but it's in Game Freak's best interest to really only show Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon because they're trying to sell that game.
I know.
So like it's a marketing thing. That's the same with Metroid Prime. I'm sure they have something like showable, but they don't show unless they have a lot to show, which they showed like quite a bit for Kirby and they showed quite a bit for Yoshi.
Yeah.
But just like right after they say, yeah, we're making another Pokemon game, everyone's like hype levels are just like rising up.
Right.
And then just the zoom out of the star field. And I'm like, because the music is it's not really music yet. And then you see the S in the sky and just that 4 show up. And then everyone's mind just exploded at that moment. It was amazing.
How was that live for you? Were you watching it by yourself?
I was watching it by myself and I literally bust out laughing. I was just like,
I can imagine
They did it! The madmen!
That's awesome, dude. That's fucking funny.
It was an amazing moment. And then it fades down. It's like, it's now in development. It's like, okay.
Back down to earth here.
Okay, back to reality.
Yeah.
They decided, okay, we'll greenlight that Metroid game that people keep asking about, whatever that is.
You know, people are crying that Retro's not doing it, but I don't think this is a problem. I think the original Metroid Prime games, they controlled, even for their time, really poorly. And I don't think there's anything special Retro did that another development company can't do, especially under the same director. Yeah,
and those games were amazing, not because of the controls, but in spite of them.
Exactly.
And you can retroactively go back and put real controls in those games because they're designed around that specifically. So it would completely ruin any sense of balance that you would have against enemies. But it'll be nice to see. This is fresh blood. You know, this is like what Splatoon did. You know, they brought new people in and they said, hey, make something cool. And Nintendo knows how to pick them, apparently. So they've had great success with that. I can only imagine that's the same director, Tanabe, which whether or not that's a good thing is kind of up for debate, though, at the same time, because it's like his vision that, not Zero, but Other M. Like that was the story beats in that, like he okayed that, he pushed for that. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt.
That bodes.
We have nothing to comment about because they haven't shown anything.
Exactly. But I think, like, you just imagine what a Metroid Prime game is, but with real shooting mechanics and, like, updated graphics, and, like, that's a winner.
Yeah, I hope they don't lean too hard on the shooter mechanics, though. Because Metroid games aren't, like, they're not shooter games, you know? Like, even the side-scrolling ones, like, the enemies are there, but it's about the exploration and the puzzles.
Sure.
And the boss battles are cool, too, but, like, that's not, like, the main swing of it. It's the atmosphere and the feel of them.
Right. I hope they don't lean into it any harder than they ever have. And I'm hoping that when you have to, it controls like a modern shooter.
I don't hope it controls like a modern shooter. I just hope it controls well.
I mean, I want to control both axes with 2 thumbsticks, and I want to hit my triggers to shoot somebody. Like, boom, modern shooter. Like, the old Metroid Prime games are so bad as far as, like, you have one axis to control, and you're, like, moving your whole body around. It's so hard to play. Like, you got to play the Wii version so you can look around. And in what world is a game control better with a Wiimote? Like, honestly, like that's.
I didn't think the control was necessarily bad. You're really bad at adapting to controls. Honestly.
Have you? You
can't even play Dark Souls. What? It's not The Witcher. I can't play it.
Well, I mean, even The Witcher. Like, we don't need to get into this. Okay, we don't need to get into that.
You know what will control very well? Yoshi. Which
this doesn't move the needle for me.
Most interesting thing is this is a first-party Nintendo game being developed by Nintendo in Unreal Engine 4. That's interesting to me.
It's interesting, I would say. Not exciting. It's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. Just a little fun thing right there. Showed more kind of interacting with the background. The whole thing is very... did you watch any of the treehouse for this? I caught some of the treehouse for this too.
Yeah.
And like throwing eggs at like the background, like cardboard, and it like flies away. It's like you're on a tabletop. It's really just leaning into that style. It's very cute. It seems like a very fun game.
I like that this is the direction they've gone with Yoshi, putting him into the yarn and now paper. I think the yarn is probably a better aesthetic, honestly. Like the paper, they kind of look dull. Like conceptually, I like it, like you said. Yeah. So we'll see. It looks like a cute little Yoshi game. I didn't beat Woolly World. I probably will never beat Woolly World, to be honest. I got what I wanted out of it, 6 hours, and said, well, moving on.
But it's in that tier of babby platformers with Kirby that are just still really fun and enjoyable to play, very relaxing.
See, what I like about the Yoshi game, it's like my 8-year-old brother can play it, beat it, love it, and I can go through and try to 100% it, and it'll drive me crazy. So there's a difficulty curve for everybody, and that's my alarm going off telling me I need to put pants on and leave. I'm going to ignore it for now. But like Kirby, there's one difficulty level. There's no curve. There's no incentive to do X, Y, or Z to make it any more difficult. It's just like, it is what it is. So I appreciate the Kirby game has these built-in sort of mechanisms to help.
And they've played with that in the past with like challenge modes, but I guess it just depends on how much it rewards you to make that a viable kind of comparison.
Right.
Yeah, they showed more Fire Emblem Warriors. I won't get that game. I don't like the Warriors games very much. I played Hyrule Warriors a little bit with you and did not move the needle for me at all.
I really liked it, man. I like the hack and slash. I like you feel so powerful, just zooping around fast as a motherfucker, slicing people up, and then the strategy elements I love. Where you're trying to manage your assets and defend different bases, and you're running all over the map. And it's nice in small doses. I beat Hyrule Warriors, enjoyed it, and I haven't had the itch to play it again. But when this comes out, I will pick it up, and I'm sure it'll be just as enjoyable.
Yeah, kind of a popcorn kind of game. I get that. Showed some more Breath of the Wild DLC, and they showed the amiibos for the 4 champions.
Oh, I'm all over those. Oh, boy.
Release date for the Master Trials will be end of this month, so in like 2 weeks. Which I still haven't bought the season pass, whatever they call it, but
no.
I will get it eventually. And when I do, I'll do the Master Trials, which I'm not sure what it gives your Master Sword. It's powered up all the time. And then Champions Ballad, which is the second part of the DLC, is supposed to come out this holiday, and they have not shown what that is supposed to be, but it's story DLC is what they've broken down as.
Okay.
And with them having the 4 champions as amiibo, I wonder if it's been what I have thought would be a cool DLC is playing as Link in the original, like, spoiler alert, but like back in the past before everything, like before shit hit the fan, and you're on your quest with Zelda and the 4 champions to do whatever they're doing.
Or, I mean, that would be cool. Or even like predate Calamity Ganon and go back to like, how did Link get sort of his reputation as this like Hyrule renowned champion or a warrior? Like,
well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like storyline wise, he's like a knight in the Hyrule army or whatever, but is chosen somehow to be Zelda's protector and part of this like quest that she's on.
Yeah.
To like get her power of like, because she's got the Triforce of Wisdom, but not in this game, but like that's sort of the same kind of power.
Yeah.
And she's trying to unlock it by visiting these shrines. Not the shrines, but the, you know what I'm talking about though.
Yeah.
With like the spirit dragons and stuff.
Right.
So that's what I was thinking, like what the DLC could be is like what happened 100 years ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing, if I would be worried about if they try to tie it in directly to what we learned in the main narrative, is that like it'll be too small. And I want them to have the freedom to get away from the Calamity Ganon and that whole thing. Like, there had to have been something before that quest that they went on together.
I don't know. That seems like that's not too small of a quest. Like, that's going all over the map, visiting these places.
I guess we'll see. That would be really exciting. It'd be cool to kind of see, like, because obviously a lot of people remember you 100 years later.
Yeah, the Zora especially, because they actually are old.
Yeah. So I really like that. Like, that's what I liked about the Star Wars prequels, as bad as they were. Like, I love going back and filling in the gaps and saying, oh, like, that makes sense now. So, you know, same thing with Zelda. If they could go back and like, oh, you know, these little Easter eggs from 100 years in the future, like that.
Yeah, I want to know what Link's midichlorian count is, and maybe that's how he got chosen. He was the chosen one. He was like a brother.
Stop it.
Then Nintendo showed more Mario and Rabbids, blah, blah, blah. Rocket League.
Fuck yeah.
You gonna buy it again?
Fuck yeah.
It's got crossplay with Xbox and PC.
Fuck yeah.
It's got hats. It's got Mario and Luigi hats. It's gonna have special cars, maybe F-Zero cars.
Fuck yeah. I'm all over it.
This year. Yeah. I'll probably buy it again.
I can play Rocket League on the pooper. I can play Rocket League in bed. Exciting.
But the crowning trailer for this E3 was Super Mario Odyssey, and finally showing what that hat does.
What that hat do?
What that hat do? That hat makes Mario a frog and a dinosaur and a signpost and a bullet bill and a Goomba and a Koopa.
Anything he can imagine. The world is his.
It's wild. That game looks so much fun. They showed those 4 worlds from the initial like announcement, but there's more than that. I was thinking that it might just be those 4. Looks like there's a really good variety of locations in this game, and it looks really, really, really fun.
So honestly, this did not move the needle for me. Nothing about it has. I'm not on the hype train the way I was even for Zelda, to a modest degree. Like, I didn't like Super Mario 64. I didn't have a 64 growing up. I've always said this. Like, Spyro 2 was my Mario 64, if that makes sense. It was my sort of entry point into what a 3D action platformer was, and going back and playing Mario 64 is a lot tougher than it sounds. I loved games like Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World. Thought those were awesome. Those were kind of inspired by like what Super Mario 64 and Sunshine were.
No triple jump, dude. Yeah, they take small cues like wall jumps, but even like New Super Mario Brothers had that. I don't know. It's completely different when you have access to controlling your camera, and it's a lot less linear. Like, you're doing a lot of the same things, but it's like how Breath of the Wild has shrines, whereas older Zelda games have temples.
Right.
Like, it's that kind of comparison where it's
the same but different.
When you're in a exploratory Mario game, you're doing the same things you would do in a linear Mario, but you're doing them in the order that you want.
Right.
So it's a different level of gameplay loop, and like finding the thing is as fun as doing the thing. And Mario lends itself, especially like how I was talking in another podcast, how Breath of the Wild moving around is just so much fun.
Oh yeah.
Mario is the best example of that. And this game looks like it has that nailed down, and that's what I'm the most excited about, is just running around being Mario.
Yeah, I'm glad we saw more variety in the worlds. Like, when I saw New Donk City, like, I love the name, really don't like the aesthetic. Like, being in a city, it's fucking weird. But we saw a lot of different locales, a lot of different worlds.
I still don't understand why people got so hung up on that.
It's unnatural. But
how do you watch that trailer and think, oh, we're going to be in a city the whole time? Is that our hub world? Why did people get stuck on that?
I don't know. But it was just weird. I think it was natural for them to kind of jump to these worrisome conclusions. But I like the level variety so far. Seems really nice. It's very diverse, which is like crucial in a game like this. I'm definitely going to pick it up. It looks like a Mario game, and I have never not enjoyed a Mario game.
Right? Yeah, that's another thing, is that there have been how many bad Mario games?
Yeah, like the worst one's probably Super Mario Land, and I love that game. So,
or like the spin-offs. Those hardly count. Like Mario Party, all kind of suck.
Those don't count. Those aren't Mario games.
Right.
That's like saying Mario Rabbids is a Mario game. It's not a Mario game. Mario is just in it. It's like saying the Super Mario Bros. Movie was a Mario movie. It wasn't a Mario Bros. Movie.
It was. It's canon.
No! Dude, I just found that the other day digging through my DVDs. Sarah was like purging, because we're all on the Blu-ray thing, right? And we have been for a few years. So we're moving. So Sarah was kind of purging the DVDs that we don't want to have to box up and move because we don't watch DVDs. And I was going through, and I'm like, okay, there are 3 movies we have to keep. Maybe 4.
Mario
is one of them. Like Mike, Hoosiers, and the sleeper was Kangaroo Jack. we put that back in the get rid of pile, though. She made me.
Honestly, you should have all those on Blu-ray. You don't want to miss a detail on Kangaroo Jack.
A lot of those aren't. A lot of the DVDs aren't made on Blu-ray, which is why we had them on DVD.
Damn shame.
Yeah. So, oh well. Kangaroo Jack, bro. That movie was real not good. But no, man. Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Odyssey. It's all connected, man. It's all like John Leguizamo is going to make an appearance in New Donk City somewhere. Like, it's possible now. Like,
I want the New Donk Historia, and I want to know what the Mario timeline is.
Dude,
let's have it already, okay?
Dude, the New Donk Historia. Fuck yeah, dude. Let me tell you what.
That's the name of my mixtape.
Let me tell you what, man. Nintendo has just like unknowingly spawned It's gonna be some of the best like video game porn parodies. Like, are you kidding me right now? New Donk City, bro. New Dong City. Even just New Donk City works. Oh, Big Booty Mario. New Donk City. Like people are gonna have fun with that when the time comes.
Sign me up.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I love it though, man. I'm hoping, like, how is Donkey Kong going to be implemented in this game?
I don't know. They have those like red girders in the city. There might be. I don't know if Donkey Kong actually will be in it, but like it's the whole city is a reference.
He better be.
Pauline
Throwback
is
to OG,
the singer,
dude. Yeah,
she's the mayor of the city.
Oh man,
they could do that level of crossover. Donkey Kong 94 have him wear the T-shirt instead of have the tie.
Dude, I want it. I fucking want it. That would be really cool, man. The T-shirt.
The timeline,
oh
though.
My god. Oh, the fucking timeline. You think it's coming? You think the Mario timeline's coming?
No. Will I make it anyway? Potentially.
You should do that. Console Crusade exclusive. Couple last little bits. We haven't mentioned Samus Returns yet.
That's true. That was like a dark horse kind of. Oh, Treehouse. Oh, by the way, we made an actual 2D Metroid game. Just
like what?
It's over here. It's like what? Didn't mention 3DS once in the direct.
Yeah,
which I think definitely on purpose.
Yeah, it's good. It makes sense that they announced this in the Treehouse, dude.
Yeah, the 2.5D.
Yeah, this is a full-on Metroid game, classic Metroid game,
remake of a game that's almost unplayable. Like Metroid 2 is hard to play.
Yeah,
the sprite's way too big. There's no map. You get lost very easily, and even if you play it in color, with a Game Boy Color, it doesn't denote special like blocks. It still doesn't make it any better, really.
No. This is cool that they're doing a remake. Part of me thought, like, why a remake or a reimagination? Like, why not just make a new 2D Metroid game? So because there's not like a narrative. It's not like there's code they're borrowing or assets. It's like it's a whole new game. Why not just establish it as like a sequel? I feel like people will be more excited about it that way.
It's a whole new game, but it's a very important in as far as the story goes. Because Metroid 2 is where she gets the baby Metroid, and
I don't know
that's
enough
important for storyline. It's important for storyline. That's all you really have to know.
Okay.
And they already remade Metroid 1 with a Zero Mission on Game Boy Advance. So as far as Zero Mission to Super Metroid, which doesn't need to be remade, like it's the missing link as far as playable Metroid games.
Honestly, I wish this was a 2D. I wish this was a sprite-based, fully 2D.
That would be awesome.
That would have been really cool. I wish they would have done it, man.
That's above the pay grade of a third-party studio that they kind of sourced out for this.
Yeah, that's true. That's really cool. The last thing on the list here is Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, which I'm actually way more excited about than I am about 2.5D Metroid. Really? Have you seen the gameplay in this? Have you seen the trailer? Oh, yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. It's actually sprites. It's sprites. Yeah, it doesn't look much different than the original. Like it is, obviously, but like it really captured what was a very unique aesthetic. It captured that really well while modernizing it, I think. Yeah, it's them like acknowledging that game and looking back towards it, and that gives me hope that future Mario and Luigi titles would be more grounded in this, like, not necessarily style, but like the gameplay loop of it. Yeah. So I love it. A couple things we didn't get. We did not get any peripherals like I predicted. We did not get our Super Nintendo Classic Edition. Watch it be just casually announced next week. I'm sure it will be at some point. One thing that we didn't mention, Sony, last pod I said that PSX is Sony's bread and butter now. People looked at E3 and said Sony didn't do this, didn't do that. That was a bummer. Like, Sony did what they needed to do to stay relevant, but I think this is another year where they're going to kill it. PSX, they're going to drop some new stuff, some exclusive stuff, and it's just really going to be the year that's like, oh, that's why they didn't drop it at E3. PSX is what they do now. What all did they do awesome at PSX last year? Was it just The Last of Us trailer? Because if it's just like Death Stranding, super ethereal, oh, check out this music video we made, then like at that point that's not exciting to me. But I mean, I get it, because we were both excited about Metroid Prime being announced, and that wasn't even a trailer, that was a JPEG. The thing about E3, it's all about hype. PSX is now that for Sony, where so last year, besides a bunch of indie stuff, but let's see, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, Danganronpa 3. They showed Crash Bandicoot at E3 first, though. Was that the reveal? Yeah. Was that E3? Yeah. Really? Okay. Well, shitty. Yeah, obviously they revealed MVC3.
Yeah, because they had Capcom Cup at PSX because they have the exclusivity for Street Fighter.
So here's some of the bigger things. Nier Automata. So that was announced. Ni no Kuni 2 was revealed, which is like huge as far as like hype goes. Fucking Parappa, the Rappa, Patapon, and Loco Roco. That got some people hyped. There's more RE7 stuff. We had the Uncharted reveal, and then we had the Yakuza stuff, you know, like a lot of smaller things, but like stuff they're like each fan base kind of got a little bit of everything. But they had a lot of, I think there's more heavy hitters there than like, they didn't announce anything this year. Sony didn't announce anything new other than the Shadow of the Colossus, right? And Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Everything else was known quantity. So I don't know. I think PSX will be cool this year. I think they'll redeem themselves.
I just don't know if there's room for their PSX to be exciting because we know what all their studios are doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the only thing they can do is just show more of what we've seen, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
No, but I guess every couple of years this kind of is bound to happen, right?
Yeah. Which is why it's weird that they didn't have a lot more exciting third-party stuff showed off. I mean, Xbox was killing it with third-party reveals and stuff like that. And Sony had what? Monster Hunter? Like, sure, that's big in Japan, but like E3 is not a Japanese show.
Right.
So that's why I'm just saying Sony felt like the weakest conference out of all of them for me.
But this is the first year that I can remember watching where like somebody didn't disappoint. It was like everything was solid to really great.
Yeah, everything was just good job.
And everyone's been crying about the death of E3. And I think E3 is evolving from what it used to be, right? It used to be the showcase for these companies. This was the event. It's evolving beyond that. But now it's like seeing the emphasis on like getting your hands on games. Maybe it's the advent of like social media and YouTube as like platforms and these personalities going in and getting their hands on games. And like, I feel like the focus on actually getting to play these games and share it with the world was like is bigger than I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and there are other shows, that's true, but E3 being it, like, people recognize E3 the time of year, and it's a time where we see a lot of big announcements from Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, and I hope that it doesn't go away because I don't pay attention to the companies that I don't have a console from.
Right.
Unless it is like a big event like this. So it is a nice time to everyone to kind of peek their head out of their personal worlds and see what's going on next door.
Right.
And that's really cool that further benefits everyone.
I think it was a solid year, and I hope that it can kind of continue, you know, and because like last year it was like everyone left E3 just saying like, wow, this is it. Like, you know, and then obviously they opened it to the public this year. Like we've mentioned before. And so I think it's going to evolve into more of like a con, like a Comic-Con or
like a PAX maybe.
Yeah. It's going to become more like that. And it'll live on in a new and exciting way.
Yeah, I think there's still room for E3 to exist along with other big shows like Gamescom and TGS. But it does need to change, especially if they want to open up to the public again.
Yeah. Because
there just isn't the capacity for it. The people who had booths didn't accommodate for that number of people. So we'll see what they do next year. But I think there's still going to be E3 for the foreseeable future, and I'm okay with that. I feel okay with that.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, this has been a 3-hour E3 wrap-up pod that I have to edit tonight. So fuck me, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we have the technical issues we've been having. This is going to be alleviated by a few things we've tried. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. And if everything works out, I might not edit this too much. I might just fucking throw it up.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be a real nice. So fuck yeah, this has been the Constant Crusade podcast. I'm EJ Olson. This is Nick Durheim.
Ka-chow.
The game is fun.
All about the game.
World premiere.